pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Tonight's agenda. Approval of minutes from April 17th, President's remarks, presentation from Bill Badger, County Economic Development Director, County Commissioners report, Jim Bunting, report on 2012 Election Committee, Dan Statursky, presentation of Association Food and Beverage Business, Pete Donzak, General Manager's report, public comment, immediate questions, motion for renaming areas surrounding and including the Veterans Memorial. Pending action list is old business, new business. Motion to direct the President to request Board Advisory Committees to undertake an evaluation of activities and committee membership. Pete Donzak. Motion to release funds to begin work on the dog park, Ray Unger. Motion to amend bylaws, section 5.02C, Dave Stevens. Motion to amend resolution B04, Dave Stevens. Motion to accept new board resolution of M09, candidate search process for OP board elections in first consideration, Dave Stevens. Motion to refer a draft proxy statement within the Elections Committee to Mr. Moore for review and comment, Dan Statursky. CPI actions, Advisory Committee appointments, the Election Committee, adjourned for a closed section for personnel and legal matters. Any changes or adjustments to the agenda for tonight?
Motion to accept this agenda.
Second? Second. Okay. Minutes of the April 17th meeting. Changes or adjustments?
Move to approve.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I'd like to welcome, just one quick comment on the IRS so that people are aware that we have been notified by the courts that they have decided to not hear our appeal. So we are in consultation with our lawyers and legal folks as to what, if any, next steps might be at this point. So just so everybody knows that they did not accept our request for an appeal or a hearing or whatever the right phrase would be.
En banc
appeal. They did not accept it, so we are moving forward with legal advice, and the board will be deciding what, if anything, to do next, short of paying bills. That being said, in order to move on, a very busy night tonight, I'll cut my comments short to that and ask Bill Badger to please join us. Bill, thanks for joining us.
pleasure. Do you want me to stand here, sit there?
You be comfortable. You're talking to us and the folks at the same time. Have a seat with us if you
We'll
would.
get you on camera.
You'll be facing
Okay.
the camera.
I have a great face for radio.
Wait, I thought we expected him to stand at attention. Sure you do.
Well, I want to thank you for having me here this evening. I've been on the job for 6 months as the Worcester County Economic Development Director. Everyone has been very warm and welcoming, and I see a lot of opportunity for us in the short time I've been here. I guess the saying goes, someone like me from the Western Shore has come here. I've been calling myself a Western Shore refugee, and I guess I can use both terms interchangeably. We all know what the driver of our economy is, and I apologize for my back to some people here in the room. It's pretty clear: tourism, with the crown jewel being Ocean City, agriculture with the crown jewel being poultry, and really a national reputation as a place to come for vacation or retirement. All those reasons will continue to attract people to our county and to our various towns and cities. Ocean Pines is in what I call the growth triangle between Ocean Pines, Berlin, and West Ocean City. That's where the county is going to see the growth that occurs in our county. The last census tract data we have indicated that about 11% growth in our population, which currently stands at about 51,000 people. We have some issues here in the county. One of them is today we have the highest unemployment rate in the state of Maryland. That is a lagging number, county number, and that it's 2 months old, but it's about 14.7%. And we all know there's some seasonality in that number, but that's a category I don't want to be number one in and continue to have the highest unemployment rate. So we're working on that. As all of you know, we have a great school system here in the county. By many measures, the number one county school system in the state of Maryland. 9 out of the 12 schools in our county are blue ribbon schools, which is a fantastic achievement. Some of you may not know that we spend actually more money per pupil than Montgomery County, Maryland. And for those of you that know Montgomery County, Maryland, that is one of the wealthiest jurisdictions in the nation. Now, we're not as wealthy as Montgomery County, Maryland, and there's some reasons for that. And as we all know, money doesn't solve all problems. But I think our money is going a long way in the quality school system we have. One reason we're able to spend that kind of money per pupil is we're in a unique situation where we have about 22,000 households, but about 55,000 dwelling units. And so the size of our school population is smaller compared to other jurisdictions of comparable size. That growth rate of 11%, we all know that's an older demographic that's coming at us, people that are taking early retirement or choosing to retire. And we have to balance that against the challenge we have with our young adults coming out of our K-12 system and higher education where they don't receive employment opportunities here in our county. And we have to do a better job of that. That's my job, is to create what I call family supporting jobs for our community so our children and our young adults choose to stay and live in our county and our communities. So my goals are pretty simple. I want to reduce our unemployment rate. I don't want to be number one in the state of Maryland. I want to focus on family supporting jobs for our community. I want to keep those school graduates here. I think it's important that we send the message in our community that we are a pro-business community, that we want jobs, we want investment that results in tax revenue so we can continue to support the kind of quality government services that we've all been accustomed to here in our county. The growth that we're going to see in the future, I think, is going to be focused in a couple of primary areas. Obviously, healthcare with an older demographic here, professional services, and retail will continue to see growth in our county as far as jobs. Now, we can do growth while being very careful in protecting our quality of life and the unique environment that we live in here in our county on the Atlantic Ocean. And we have to keep that balance, which is very important to all of us. So those are my goals. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to working with all of you as we move forward and continue the great things that we're doing in Worcester County.
Thank you, Bill.
Questions of Bill?
Good information.
Thank you.
Halfway hot. My name is Bill Wentworth.
Yeah.
Does your department have any interaction, this is just curiosity, any interaction with the state department of economic development?
Yes, very frequent interaction, yes. DBED, yeah. I actually, just for those of you who don't know, I spent 28 years in economic development on the Western Shore before I arrived here. 17 of those years were with DBED, so.
What specifically, if you uncovered that, can we at Ocean Pines do to help you do it?
Well, one thing that I've been focusing on is, I think we all know this, there's a tremendous amount of talent, entrepreneurship, and wealth that's not only embedded in our community, but people that are coming to visit us. And part of my mission and part of what I want to accomplish is get the word out to those people that are not engaged in our economy, that are spending some time here to be engaged in our economy. Had a great example here recently of a shopping center we're interested in helping, and I got a call from a company in Pennsylvania, but one of the principals happened to live here part of the year in Ocean Pines. I didn't know that. And there's a lot of those stories out there where there's a lot of people that live here or have a vacation home that we don't know can be of assistance to us to help us with our economy. So hopefully, part of that message gets out tonight that we need to engage people in that. So.
How do people contact you?
My office is in Snow Hill, and we just launched a new website. It's called ChooseWorcester.org. It's a work in progress, and one of the things that we're doing is without a large advertising budget, we are targeting some of the tourism trade that comes into our county, and we've done an ad in the primary Ocean City Tourism Directory. The Source publication the Chamber puts out, we've also put some information in there, and I can be reachable by phone, email, or the website.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to say that as a county commissioner, we're proud to have Bill with us. And today, Bill gave us a list of his preference of orders of things he would like for us to do to help him be successful. I think there was 9 on the list, and 1 through 6 were approved. 7, 8, 9 were not. I'll take it. We included that in the budget for him, and as he said about his experience, we're really, he jumped into it feet first. Already he's doing a good job. He's done some things that people don't even know about, and I think he's going to do a good job for us. Thank you.
Congratulations on the 1 through 6, by the way.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Jim, you're next. Just warm that seat up for you.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody here tonight, this evening. One of the things I will talk about, I don't have a written report. We've been very busy with the budget. In fact, we actually adopted the budget today. I will give you a report on that in a few minutes. I did not approve of adopting it today, but it happened. But as a lot of you have heard, there's been an issue with the Ocean Pines sewage treatment plant, where the state was going to charge everybody, the residents of Ocean Pines, $30 for the Bay Restoration Fund. The plant had been exempt. And then in July, it was going to jump to $60. That came out of the Task Force of Sustainable Growth and Wastewater Disposal. It's the state's way of looking at every way they can get money. $60 would have represented over $500,000 to the state, approximately. Well, we sent a letter to Secretary Summers of MDE requesting him to look at the exemption had been revoked. We were going to have to, the customers were going to have to pay it. And we also, I got to thank our environmental programs director, Bob Mitchell, and Senator Mathias. Through their work, we received a letter today that we will be exempt. Good. So, no, if you need any further details, I'll be glad to. Any further questions on that issue? Good. Okay. As you know, one of the things, I campaigned on and I considered a major problem was the drainage problem in areas of Section 3 of Beecham Road. The first look at it, a year before I was a county commissioner, there was 2 ideas, and they were very expensive. One of them was approximately $400,000. One of them was like $1.1 or $2 million. After actually going out there myself and a couple other county people and pulling some manholes and looking at things, we saw a solution that would go through River Run, and we met with Mr. Meltzer of River Run, and right now that is very positive. It's going to be very cheap to fix, and we've got a utility easement agreement written, which we're waiting on the comments from Mr. Meltzer. and we've done everything possible to make sure everything's protected from Mr. Meltzer, and we're really looking good for that. We think we're going to solve the drainage problem in Section 3, and Mr. Meltzer is working with us, and I think that's going to be solved.
Primary discussion.
That's worth a round of applause.
Primarily because he's not afraid to dig in the ground to go find the real
I actually
reason.
pulled the manhole lids off myself and
Right.
actually verified pipe sizes
Yeah.
because we were getting wrong
That's right.
information on pipe sizes. And the solution was, of course, I'm licensed to do stormwater management in the state of Maryland, Delaware, because I'm a professional land surveyor, and I got looking at it and I said, this is simple if we get Mr. Meltzer's cooperation. And it appears that we are going to get that.
If I can jump in with one thing there, it's been a project in process for almost a year with regular monthly meetings. And when Commissioner Bunning jumped into the first 3 meetings, we weren't moving forward very quickly. And since he became involved and jumped into those meetings with his experience and certainly his efforts, certainly moved us forward much, much quicker and helped us with the solution. So appreciate all your efforts on that, because that makes a big difference to the Ocean Pines community.
Thank you. Okay. As you know, we've been working on the county budget for 2 or 3 months now. We were supposed to have a work session next Tuesday and then vote on it on June 5th. Actually, today, the budget was approved today. And I did vote against the approval of it and certain issues of it, but it is done. And here's the report. One good thing about it is we actually went through it line by line today, and we cut over $280,000 out of it by going through it line by line, which we did last year at my and another commissioner's initiative, because it had never been done before. So we cut $280,000. We were looking at a budget of requested budget of approximately $171 million. Projected revenues were approximately 153. So we were looking at between 17 and $18 million shortfall. The remedy to that was to raise taxes by 7 cents, which was what we call constant yield. And I'm sure most of you, if you're not, you can ask me, but know what that term is. So today, the commissioners did vote to raise taxes by 7 cents, from 70 to 70 cents. One of the other things today that happened was that, which I voted against, was to give the county. First of all, the requested budget included a 3% pay increase for all county employees and for all the Board of Education. Our committee reduced that to 2.5. I did not personally think it was time with increasing people's property taxes by 7 cents. I didn't think it was the proper time to give our employees a raise, especially if any of you paid attention to what's in the papers and what people make in our county. But anyhow, I did manage to get the 2.5 down to 2%, so we also in the budget they have adopted a 2% raise for all county employees in the Board of Education, which basically balanced the budget on the backs of the taxpayers. And it's been a long day and I'm tired, but I'll take any questions you might have about anything. Yes, sir.
What impact do you think the teachers' pension system is going to impact the county when that happens? Because that's a big burden.
It's already happened, and that was part of our budget. Let's see here. In 2013, our share of Worcester County will be $1.272 million we have to pay. Now, supposedly, there will be givebacks from the state, which will reduce that to 861,000. We're kind of doubtful that's going to happen. So they went with the worst number of $1.272 million. That's for 2013. 2014, our cost will be added to our budget, will be $1.612 million. And they're suggesting that will be reduced to $953,000. In 2015, it will be $1.648 million added to our budget. And I won't even go into the reduction because I don't think it's going to happen. And 2016 is $1.952 million. So Worcester County, the whole idea was us to have to pick up 50% of the teacher's pension, which is over $4 million, and which is what they've done. Now, just to give you an example, Wycomico County, at the end of 4 years, we're going to wind up with a net cost of over $4 million to our taxpayers. Wycomico County will probably wind up with a net cost to their taxpayers of maybe $280,000. Just to give you another example, talking about Montgomery County, their cost over 4 years was over $160 million. If the state gives back what they're going to say they're going to give back, they will only have $9 million there. So they're 160 and 9. We're 8, and we get over 4. I can give you other examples. I got every county here, but it's going to be a burden on taxpayers.
Why is the big difference with Wycomico?
Well, Wycomico County increased their tax rate to, I think it was, I don't have it in front of me, it's approximately 0.78 or something like that. And Worcester County is considered a wealth-based county, and they base it on a wealth-based formula, and we're a rich county. So therefore, we did not get what some other counties got. The state wants us to raise our taxes, which we did, 7 cents, or I didn't, but it will be raised. And we might have saw a little bit less. I don't know. It's just politics.
Bill, you have a question?
Jim, has Worcester County considered joining the other jurisdictions in the state requesting from the state all teachers, all public school teachers in the state of Maryland pay 7% of their gross income in the state retirement system? And of course, they're accruing, I think, compound interest. So if they're going to pass this on to the county, why has there been any consideration of all jurisdictions joining in and requesting from the state, if you're doing this, then fine, give us our money that our teachers are contributing to that compounded interest?
Well, first of all, it is 7%.
That's okay.
Yes, it is. It is. It was 5, and it was increased to 7%. Okay. Secondly, the state. We do not have any. I don't know how to put this, but we have no control over how the money's invested or how it's handled, and apparently they're not going to let us have any the counties.
Well, I guess my question is, as joint the jurisdictions across the state, have they sort of requested that?
It's been brought up, yes.
Okay.
Yes. But the response has been no. Only good thing I can say is the state cannot raid that fund like they've done other funds. But OPED, I think you're talking about OPED.
Yeah.
OPED has a huge amount of money in it.
Jim, thank you. I know you've had a long day, and I appreciate you sharing good news and other news. It's a tough position to be in.
Well, thank you for being here, and I'm going to sit here and listen to the rest of the evening.
Feel free.
Jim, I got one more question.
Yes, sir.
What's the chances of the permanent residents of Worcester County losing that discount rate because of this teacher's pension? Would that be something that would probably be on the block in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years from now to fund that?
No, because This amounts to approximately 50%. At the end of 4 years, the state's going to give us the other 50.
I believe they saved you.
Yes. Well, I would bet on it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you, sir.
Report on the status of the election.
Okay, just quickly to run this down, all the directors got an election committee scheduled for 2012. It's very thorough and is based primarily on what's in the bylaws and things like that. To convert that a little bit to reality, we have the search committee has in fact identified 5 candidates. They forwarded the applications to me after the close of business on May the 10th. On May the 11th, I sat with Ruth Ann and verified the fact that all 5 of these candidates are in fact eligible to run, and sent a letter attesting to that to the chairman of the election committee. As of yesterday, all 5 candidates received their packages from the election committee. Talks about what the schedule will be for the election, what they can do and what they can't do. On June the 8th, the next key date will be the candidates' draw for positions on the ballot. June the 26th at 7 p.m. in the Country Club will be the candidates' forum. July the 12th, we'll mail out the election ballot. And August the 9th will be the ballot deadline for the election. Close of business August the 9th, all the ballots need to be in. August 10th, they'll count the votes. August the 11th, we'll have the general meeting to announce the winners. The 2 people who get the most votes will fill 2 3-year positions. That's what's at stake here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Dan? All right. Pete Gonzak, presentation on Association Food and Beverage Banquet Business.
Let me pass this out to the I'm going to try and be briefer than usual. We'll see how it goes. I asked to be on this agenda for this particular reason because I think it's important right now that our board and the community understand exactly what is when we talk about banquet or catering. Okay? So the purpose of the presentation is quite simply the fact that we have major decisions that are in process right now regarding what to do with our major facilities, primarily the yacht club, as you know. The bid dates have been extended, but it's right around the corner. So very significant decisions affecting the next 30 to 40 years, hopefully, will be made. Sound decision making by the board and the members requires an understanding of how current facilities are used and by whom. Back this winter when Bob Thompson, the general manager, conducted a series of town hall meetings, I believe there were 3. One on the yacht club, one on the country club, country club and the Saturday session on both. And I was able to attend 2 of those. I was away for the Saturday session, but it was clear to me from the comments and questions from the audience that there really was a lack of understanding of what the catering aspect of our operations were. And of course that has to do with what kind of yacht club do we need? Do we need a second story? Does it need to be a one? Need me over to hear something? I can do that. Okay. Do we need to have a catering? Why are we in that business, they said? Why are we doing that for them? They're just taking up space in our facilities, and why are we operating this separate business? And of course, I spoke at some of those meetings, and I did a little analysis and provided it to Bob. And Bob, I believe you subsequently used that in some of your comments to remarks as general manager during those town hall meetings about the percentage of our business that represented Ocean Cline's use versus outside use. But I wanted to delve into it a little bit more. Those statistics were based on 2010 data, and so Colleen over at the Yacht Club was really, really helpful in this process. And Colleen's last name is Eastman. She really dug into this, and I have to tell you that the records from 2-3 years ago are not the best of records. All right, so there was quite a chore to try and pull this data together. You're going to see this data here. And I have packets for the board, and there are packets available. I believe you have, Teresa, for members of the press if they want them. In any event, we did, as it says here, look at 3 years' worth of data. And I view that, instead of just looking at 1 year, 2010, as previously looked at, we look at 11 and 12. 2012, we took 11 months actual data and budgeted for the final month of the year and got the numbers for 2012. So, much of this is obvious. What are the functions? Banquet is really captured as a P&L item in our Yacht Club financial statements. Because traditionally that operation has been headquartered out of there, even though a banquet may be held at the Yacht Club, at the Beach Club, the preparation, the marketing, everything took place. So it's been included in the financial statements historically of the Yacht Club because that's where the center of the banquet operations is. Okay, I use banquet. Our financial statements use banquet. A lot of people call it catering. So whichever you call it, it's dinners and parties and so forth. The events include a wide variety. Weddings, of course, constitute a pretty significant part of that business. You'll see the numbers here in a minute. But celebrations, anniversaries, birthdays, rehearsal dinners, almost virtually all of those are by our members, not outsiders coming into the community to use our facilities. Bereavement functions, about 10 a year of bereavement functions. I went through one myself here about 1.5 years ago when my brother-in-law passed away, and his wife said, "Oh my gosh, I want to have something after the Mass," and they turned to the Yacht Club. That's where she wanted to have it. I was pleased to be able to assist her in having that, and they did a marvelous job. But families in a time of need like that, they turn to our facility. They don't want to go look for another facility, a restaurant or someplace. It's ours. So community organization functions. You'll see a list here later of the various organizations, not-for-profits almost exclusively. There's some not-for-profits, but the majority we're talking about here are community organizations that we're all part of. You'll see the list later on. And it's everything from the Lions Club to the Red Hat Ladies to ARP and on to the Boat Club. There are over 60 organizations that take advantage of the catering operation, if you will, the banquet operations that we as an association offer. Again, it's not about them, it's about us. OPA does a variety of functions there. We've carved out that information separately as well. The association itself, volunteer appreciation is a good example. We have that very nice function to say thank you to all our volunteers once a year. Well, we use our facility for that. We don't have to go rent a facility. That's all part of the banquet operations. There's a member guest golf tournament, although not this year, but historically they would have their dinner over at the Yacht Club. The county commissioners dinner we host each year, the county commissioners. That's another use of the banquet operations of the association. A variety of things. And yes, there are some business events, seminars, corporate receptions, etc. And lo and behold, political events. A Judy Boggs thank you party for volunteers at the end. A fundraiser for somebody running for office. Members of the association who utilize that banquet capability that we have to do that. So any number of functions. The top thing is really important. I think I mentioned the usage is primarily by association members and relatives and over 60 community organizations. Again, as I said earlier, the banquet uses, it's by us, not them. There was this perception that was in the audience in the 2 sessions that I attended that said, why are we allowing them to come in and use our facilities and we rebuild it? Or why do we need to build it for them? Well, it's not them, it's us. And that's the key point of this presentation. 3-year event summary by types of events. And of course you get different numbers. You have the event itself, you have attendees, and you have revenues. It was pretty interesting pulling all this data together. It more than a few hours, as you might imagine. But here's how it breaks down. Weddings, while it comprised 33% of the events themselves, constituted 45% of the attendees and 63% of the revenues. Going down, celebration events, again, the birthday parties, the anniversary functions, the bar mitzvahs, etc., 21%, 18% of attendees, and 14% of the revenues. Look at the community organizations, 37% of the total uses related to that. Now, when I say uses, I'm talking about all three facilities, although predominantly it's the yacht club. And I break that out a little bit later on where you can see just the yacht club by itself, okay? Because that's the focus of the decision-making here in the short term, is the yacht club. And the business and political, Peninsula Regional Medical Center has a dinner that they have at the yacht club, and there's some seminars given, wealth creation seminars and that sort of thing, where they come in and we'll do a dinner or a reception or something like that. But as you can see, that's only 1% of the revenues that we generate from that. Again, the perception was, I think, different than the reality, and that's the point of my standing up here tonight. A little different summary here, members and relatives. When I say members and relatives, weddings oftentimes, it's not the bride, it's the mother-in-law, it's the uncle, it's the whatever, but there's a family connection to the resident, the member of the Pines. But we had over 300 events, all told, during this period of time. 23,000 attendees during this period of time. $707,000. Now, if you carve out the weddings separately, you'll find that OPA and community organizations comprise 95%. 95%. Again, it's us, not them. Weddings, of course, it's more mixed and closer to 50-50. So that's why I've done it, this breakout here with the functions excluding the weddings. Yacht Club specifically. It is the overwhelming the location chosen by our membership and others for special occasions. 75 to 80% of functions, attendees, and revenues over the last 3 years are by our members, their families, and the associations, the not-for-profits to which they belong, and they want to have their annual Christmas party here, or their thank you for volunteers, or whatever it might be. The Yacht Club is indeed what I've come to be calling CGP, indeed our community gathering place. It's not a restaurant competing with some other restaurant down the street or West Ocean City. It is our community gathering place. And if you've ever conducted a bereavement function or an anniversary party, people view it as their own, and indeed it is. We own it, we operate it, it's us. 100% of the bereavement functions were held at the Yacht Club, none at the Country Club, and none at the Beach Club. 70% of the celebration events were held at the Yacht Club. $840,000, or 78% of the banquet revenue, or $1,074,000 over that same 3-year period occurred at the Yacht Club itself. All right. Summary comments here. The banquet business is significant, primarily at the Yacht Club. Past 3 years, 400 functions, 3,000 attendees, $1.1 million in revenue. The banking capability primarily serves, as we've said before, the OPA membership. 80% of functions are OPA member related. 95%, as you saw earlier, if you exclude the weddings. 95% of the non-wedding functions are us, not them. 60-plus local communities, and I have a slide up here that shows them. I bet if I took a show of hands here, probably 25 of those organizations represented here in this room by people who belong to them. 50 of those 60 use the Yacht Club. The banquet business is important to the financial performance. 30% of the Yacht Club facility revenues, and they are profitable. It is much easier to manage when you know exactly how many people are coming and they paid in advance, as opposed to being open on a particular evening and guessing how many are going to show up or not show up. You can control the costs, control the staff, you get the price setups up front. It is indeed profitable. Now, I'm not going to run through too much of this, but this is the backup data, and rather than me going through all these numbers, it's in your packets. For those members of the press who read this stuff, it's there. And here it is, just the numbers themselves by year. And yes, there have been some trends, obviously. We're aware of them. The banquet business was significantly affected at the yacht club by the almost decision a couple of years ago to embark upon what we're now trying to embark upon. Indeed, we announced the closing of that for a period of time and then had to reverse course when we kind of got, I'll just say, lost traction. And we hope to gain traction here. We're moving ahead, but there was an impact there. When you announce that you're closing it, people look elsewhere, and that's exactly what happened. Also, the economic impact. The experience in recent years has been the same number of functions, quite honestly, but fewer dollars being spent. Less attendees at weddings. Functions that maybe in the past had 100, maybe have 75 now. So there's been a decline in that, but not in the events themselves. Just in the size of the events, the number of attendees, and the menu. People may have spent, a little bit more per person in the past, but not now. I'm just going to show you the kind of stuff we have here in this data. It's broken down by type of function, 143 weddings, 27 bereavements, I say bereavement functions, community organization, 129, all of which is that close to 400, I don't have a pointer here, but down the bottom, 394 events over this period of time. That's your $1 million in revenue over on the side, and almost 31,000 people accommodated. This is analysis by members, member affiliated. OPA itself had 35 such functions during this 3-year period. Community organizations, non-member individuals, da-da-da. Now here's the one showing it without weddings. And the significant thing here is the 95% figure on the extreme right and about the middle there. You really don't have a pointer, do you?
Again, it's in your hand.
No, top right. Is it?
Amen.
There, right there, 95%. Okay. Boom. That's by type of function. There they are. I think I counted something like 62 or 3 of them. Teresa, I don't know what it is, but it's something like that. It's over 60, I can tell you. You recognize the names. Good community organizations to which we in this room and others in the association belong to. They encourage them to have their events here. This is what we do here with our catering operation. Again, thank you. It's us, not them.
Thank you, Pete.
Yes, sir.
Question. The revenue showed a little over $1 million in revenue.
Over a 3-year period,
Over
correct.
a 3-year period?
Yeah.
Now, is that gross revenue? If so, do you have a
Gross
feel-
revenue.
Do you have a feel for what the net was out of that?
I don't have that right here. The net would be after you, 2 things you would have to do. Number 1, the cost of food and beverage. Okay. The margins are definitely better than the regular. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the margins are like 75%. Okay. Because, so roughly in that number. Okay. Any other questions? Board?
Just one more comment.
Yeah, Dan.
One of the things that I don't think you can statistically show in the report that's put together is not only it's us and not them, but it's also responsiveness to us. I had a bereavement function in 2001 at the Yacht Club on December the 26th. I called on December the 24th, and they had it together on the 26th of March. And there were no hassles, there were no arguments, there were no problems, there were absolutely no issues. So that's, I don't know how you measure that, but
Right.
it's incredible.
I just can't conceive of us suggesting we give this up. Again, it's not a separate line of business. It's who we are, what we do for our membership, just as in your case, Dan, or in my particular case. You don't get a lot of lead time on this.
No, you know that.
Anything else? Thank you. Thank you, Pete. Mr. Thompson. Yes. You're up. Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
just brief this. Mr. Pete. I handed it to you second.
I'm out.
A lot of information to cover, so I made sure I printed it as well as put it up on the slides for everyone else to look at. Okay, let me start kicking it off with two new additions to our team. Those who may not have met Michelle, Michelle is here to my right. Michelle was hired as the executive secretary for the organization. She has a lot of experience from a controller, billing, all types of office logistics, which was a huge plus, and we appreciate her being here. It was a good find for us. Tough reason to make the change, but we're really excited to have Michelle here. So welcome, Michelle. So if you come up to the admin building, make sure you pop in and say hello to her. I think all of you have at least met her once.
She's the one who's not Teresa, is that correct?
That's correct. She raised her hand. So
Bob, let me go past.
Yes.
If I may interrupt.
absolutely.
We have traditionally made general managers a second executive assistant, also assistant secretary of the corporation. I don't know whether that should be done now this evening or whether it should be done this meeting. That allows for the liberty to exercise official functions and also officially consider a person who covers line behind the minutes for the meetings.
So what's the answer?
I'll step in and take a motion.
I would move that we appoint Michelle Bennett as an assistant secretary of the Finance System.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Makes sense to me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Didn't ask her if she wanted it.
Comes with the job.
And there's no additional compensation.
Exactly.
You didn't say anything, you got it. Next individual, David McLaughlin. David is our new yacht club manager. We're very, very excited to have him. Has a significant background and experience, starting at the Ritz-Carlton. And he moved up from there. I won't hold the fact that most of it was New York. As a strong Redskin fan, and he's a New York fan, he started trying to change colors on me in some areas. So, but we're excited to have David. He's been on ground for about week and a half, 2 weeks now. His family just got up here, so he's trying to get acclimated. The kids moved in, and he's certainly trying to gear up for this weekend. David, you like to say any words?
Well, as I said, I had about a week or so here so far, so I've seen the club in operation. There's certainly some kinks we need to work out, but I certainly see a great potential with the yacht club. It's a wonderful location, and you got a great staff down there. And I look forward to working with them and seeing what we'll do down there very soon. We got a great weekend planned, new menus coming out, and I'll be rolling out new ideas all summer long. Going to change the place up and try different ideas. And certainly look for everybody's input. Don't hesitate to grab my ear and let me know your thoughts and areas that you see the improvement. You'll certainly start seeing them within the next week to 2 weeks, certainly if not sooner. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Just so everybody knows the process, we had sent out, for a search for a food and beverage manager. We went through that. When we narrowed it down, we had 42 resumes that we really liked, and then started narrowing down from there. Ended up having a number of folks come in. A small group of residents helped me with different backgrounds, food and beverage background, operational background, and Linda Hutner, who has been filling in, who's our food and beverage manager at the Beach Club, helped out. We all interviewed, and David was one of the top 2 candidates, and then through the second and third interview, the decision came clear for us, and we're very, very excited. I think his background, his experience, certainly is going to take us to that next level. It's that component that we need to start to close the gaps in some of those areas, such as the food costs and managing the employee costs and those type of things, which we identified last year, we just did not do so well. So his experience is going to help us close that gap, and we're very, very excited to have him here with us, and excited to have him here before Memorial Day weekend. So, okay, while we're on the yacht club, just give a quick update on the project. This is the same timeline that we've talked about the last 2 months. Something I wanted to point out to you is the bids. We did move them by 1 week. We asked for them to come in instead of last Friday. We gave them an extra week so they'd be in this Friday. The other thing I want to point out, and you all, I believe that if you got your emails, we're going to open the bids instead of Friday evening, which was intended. We're going to do it Saturday morning at 10. Reasoning for that, yes, FedEx, holiday weekend, people trying to come down if anybody wanted to attend. So we're actually going to do the bid opening this Saturday at 10. We'll do it in the boardroom. We're going to open the bids. We're going to announce the bidder, announce the project that they're bidding on, rehab, rebuild, or both, and we're going to announce the base price of their contract. Little change from what we said we were going to do before, but we think it allows for the transparency. Now, obviously, that's going to open up scrutiny, and we all know that, but I'd rather have scrutiny from the vocal minority who haven't read it than the membership who I don't want to mislead them or let them think that we're trying to hide anything, because we haven't the whole time. So we're going to do that. Once we open the bids, we're going to be working very actively to level the bids. And when we say level the bids, it's not to this one's better than that one. It's looking at the 12-page scope for each of the projects to decide, did this contractor supply enough information to meet the scope of work? And that's how we'll level it, so we can get a good apples-to-apples comparison. We'll put it together and then ultimately bring it back to the board for recommendation as to why and which contractor. Okay, so that's where we are with the yacht club. Questions from the last meeting that came up that I promised answers to today. The Marine Advisory Committee posed 3 questions to the board. The board asked me to go take a look at these. Ocean Pines to adjust regulations to allow residents to install temporary barriers during storms when we have high water events. Challenge with that is temporary barriers, if you put them in, and there's experience that has occurred during some of the hurricanes and nor'easters where some folks go out and they put them up even though they're not supposed to. By the time we go out to write a violation, the storm event's over, they remove them so they comply immediately. It's kind of a game that's played. It's unfortunate. But I think that's why the Marine Advisory wanted to tackle this and say, hey, can we get a little smarter with it? The challenge is, unless everyone participates in it, it creates a problem for your neighbors, because if the water event comes up, it may hit the barrier. If it washes left or right, it washes out the neighbor's sediment or rocks or what have you if you don't have it. And that is an actual issue that occurs for those that put them up. It may protect their homes, but it doesn't protect their neighbors very well. So we did look into that.
Rob, just to ask one clarification on that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but if you were to have put up a temporary barrier to your own property, and from that you caused the water to go onto other people's property, there could be a situation where your neighbors contact their lawyer to say, so-and-so just did this to me because it's not a matter of me not putting one up, it's a matter of he or she put one up. So there's the other side of the coin here, that by doing that, they actually may be causing damage to a neighbor, and the neighbor might not like it very much. So,
Potentially. Non-attorney, so I can't really
near my
comment.
eyes.
Ocean Pines going forward on regular scheduled bulkhead replacement program should raise the bulkhead 6 to 12 inches. Current guidelines from the Worcester County Shoreline Commission, 77, needs updating. That was on the report. We're following the guidelines. If there's a change, and we are looking at them because Marine Advisory had suggested we do so. But unless there's a change, we'll continue to follow that unless directed otherwise. I'm not sure we will have additional expense if we go to the increased height. I mean, it's just more materials. But as of right now, we are following the guidelines. Still need to clarify from Ocean Pines about allowing boaters to temporarily tie up the OP bulkheads for social events such as patronizing the yacht club, hours a day. We actually, out at the end of the T-piers, with the exception of the marina, where we're going to have fuel, you can park out there. We currently have 2 It may still be 3, but I think the third one was being filled. 2 additional slots that had not been filled yet, that we had talked with the marina folks about leaving those potentially open for yacht club patrons who want to come up by boat. The challenge you have for the ones right up on the bulkhead, not down on the piers, is just the height based on the water level. There's one ladder and there's ladders, but they're not as easily accessible depending on the tide and where they actually set the boat. So there are areas there, and they will be guided in, and our marina folks are aware of that. So they were the 3 that were posed to me, and they're the returned answers. Yes, sir.
Ray, you brought this, in this last one, they were referencing attending things at the yacht club, but weren't they also referencing things at their own, events at their own house?
Yeah, by the way, the county short line commission are rewriting some of their things to accommodate this water level rising, so that will come along. But yeah, you're right, it's not just at the yacht club. These are the places that are all through Ocean Pine where people want to be able to go and temporarily go in. Now, they can overcome that by simply going on the other side of where that bulkhead is and putting line poles into the ground. That's not affecting the bulkhead there. And on a temporary basis, that's probably the safest way to do it. What they're trying to avoid is tying up a boat long-term at a bulkhead and the wave action eventually loosening the bulkhead. That's what they're trying to avoid. But I think this is all very reasonable.
Okay.
I'll take it all back.
Okay. Want to make sure we got it all covered.
You have it in writing there.
Yes, sir.
Dog park. A lot of energy created around that unnecessarily, in my opinion. I'm going to say that. People get all anxious. We have said all along a late spring project. I don't know why or people get upset that it's not finished yet, but we're in late spring. I said it last month. I bring to you guys some additional information on it, and here it is. Here's our process we're going to use. We're finalizing the paperwork. I would like to, once we put the final pieces together, go back to a couple folks that have been real active, sharing their concerns and questions about it, just so they can take another look at it and see if we missed anything. But they've been providing materials. We've been gathering it. But basically, you would come in the admin building and register your dog park. As a matter of fact, the group that was working on the project supplied a sample registration form, and that's where the basis we're using for the initial registration. When you come in, you'll complete the registration form and pay your annual fee for your dog to use the park. You'll have to be current on all vaccinations, which means we're going to have a little bit of a training element so our staff understands and knows how to read shop records, basically, and when they're due. But we think we can work with local vets to do that. And then we're going to have them sign the liability waiver so they're aware of the fact they're using the park at their own risk. It will also be posted at the park, but we think having them sign it when they register is going to be equally as important. The other thing is we're going to issue a dog tag. The reason we're going to issue the dog tag is we know that folks down at the park actually have the tag that matches. They've come in, they've registered, they're using the park properly. We're going to make it an annual tag. There's been some debate back and forth that says, well, no, once it's issued once, be done with it. Well, I felt an annual tag's better because vaccinations do run out. And it's easy to say, well, pet owners are always going to take care of their dogs. Well, it's a little unfair to those that do. For the one that may forget, a gentle reminder that you have to come in and renew your just like you do all your other memberships once a year. We'll do it we're still getting the pricing on tags and what it's going to cost to produce them. They're not terribly expensive. And if it's someone who's a repeat, we'll do a very nominal fee just to cover the tag, but we want to make sure we're looking at their biggest thing, the vaccinations. Yes, sir.
Is there going to be a way to monitor that all dogs that perform the process?
The tag. What we're going to do is change the color, and we took this right off of the ASTIC idea. At ASTIC every year when you get your sticker, it's a different color. It matches for that year.
What I mean is, who's going to is there any monitoring of the person who has brought their dog in? Who's going to be looking at the person?
The folks there. It's a self-monitor.
Self-monitor, yeah.
So that's why if we go with a color tag and it changes every year, if you don't see the blue tag on, it gives you an opportunity to go up and gently say, have you registered? Just that way we're protecting ourselves. And if it's red tag this year and it's blue from last year, that little nudge to your neighbor say, look, I know you're here. Next time, why don't you make sure you go and get that dog registered? That way we don't get ourselves in a bind. If not, we might lose the park. I mean, that's really what it is if we have an issue. So this is how we feel we can handle that.
What's the annual fee?
The recommendation was $25, and that seems like a reasonable fee. We still don't have quite all the cost of the tags, but they range from $3 to $6. I mean, they're not terribly expensive. The other thing is we also want to look at, and Mr. Unger was nice enough to talk to, or his group that he was working with, to a couple of vets, and they donated doggy bag stands already with the baggies and such. So with those type of things, the fee can be very, very nominal. And that's the goal, is to keep it very inexpensive to use.
That's going to cover the cost of operations and maintenance.
Well, that's what we're looking at. I think so. I mean, it's cutting the grass, which we already cut in that area. Once it's up, it's just a little extra time doing the weeding around it. Other than that, we cut the grass in the areas I'm going to show you in a minute anyway. Okay. Location. This was the initial location. You guys have seen it before because I had the information out there. Okay. One of the concerns we had in getting through the spring, it was something we talked about, why we said we were going to wait till late spring. This is when we typically get the rain. And everyone said, oh, no, it's easy. You fill dirt, you do this. It's not as easy. Okay, we need to make sure the ground isn't going to be a maintenance nightmare because it's too wet, it's too soggy. Why build it if the pet owners can't use it comfortably? Well, what we found is what we figured back in this area. It does get very damp and wet. There's a ditch that runs along here, which we're aware of. There would have to be some buildup if we go with this particular location. So with the recent rains, we're able to go out there and take another look at the facilities or the area. This is where the one we just looked at. It's right over here. We looked at potentially putting one right here. Here's the playground, community gardens, tennis courts. There's a long rectangular run back here that stays very dry. Even in the wet, where we just had rain, a couple different events, we went out and walked it, and it's still a hard, compact. The day it's raining, it's going to be wet. But very, very shortly thereafter, it drained, and there was no issue with, the water being stuck in the ground, being soggy, and those type of things. The other thing is, right at this end, we already have water. Over at this end, we have a culvert that already crosses the ditch that's there, and there's a path already in. So our expense becomes greatly reduced. We pipe right off of this, somewhere in here to put the watering, put the water for the hose and the drinking water. And the culvert, we don't have to put one in, unlike the other side. So that's the second area we looked at. Went back and looked at a third area, and my concern here is the kids playing, although you're not supposed to have any dogs that are vicious at all. I mean, that's part of the deal. But you do have, that's my only concern. I did have the tennis folks really upset, and I'm a little disappointed because the only one individual that I walked this with that was not an OPA employee, and I asked for his input because I respect his input. Well, within hours, I start getting calls from tennis. So the fact he went to the tennis committee and shared it just makes it more, this is whole area, and I know people don't like to hear it, this is for 8,446 property owners. That's our membership. That's who I look at for when I make these decisions. It's not for 200 tennis members or X number of softball players or basketball. It's for everybody. I don't, yes, sir?
Those are homes, excuse me.
Yes, yeah. No, I'm talking about this, the facility itself.
Yeah, I know. Those are homes open, all right.
Yeah, but you don't see, that's so densely, you don't see that at all. Matter of fact, back here, covers it from all areas. You can't see a home walking that area at all. You have to look over the community gardens to see it.
Yeah,
but, yes, sir. What's that?
You got a third one?
I have a third one. I'm putting out the highlights on each.
Okay.
All right, so this one becomes the easiest to maintain. It's a long stretch. It's the driest area, and there's already elements there that we could use.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
What is right here?
On open grass.
This is parking, right?
Yes, open grass.
So if this were to be shifted to here, that would be the parking for the dog.
And community gardens,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because that's one of the concerns that, as I shared with you, talking to the tennis folks, is the parking issue. If this were to be shifted, the tenant will use that for the.
And then what happens? Community garden folks are going to be upset because we're using theirs. It's just interesting, you know, again, none of them have called me. Let me make sure it's clear, but I've had plenty of tennis folks call me in the last day. So the other area, all right, so that was, yes, sir.
What's the nature of those calls that you've been getting from the tennis folks?
I don't want it next to our facility. It'll
Noise?
block our parking, it's noisy.
Parking?
I'm sharing it because I think you all need to know before we make any decisions to push
Right.
back the pros and cons of each, which I promised I would do. Now, taking that into consideration, went back over and with the individual that walked on that side, we looked at, now if you remember, the initial configuration went around the basketball court.
Right.
Over here is where the second proposal is. This goes back to the other side with the layout, okay? Back to the original side we looked at. Instead of being laid out, wrapped around this way, this area of land here, this whole area here, and up in here is all dry. It's a very dry area, so that takes care of the concern about the too soft. Anywhere on this side becomes very soft. So this actually works better than option 1. Option 2 is still the driest overall. The other feature with option 2, very little canopy. There are some trees, but little canopy so that you have the more direct sunlight to keep it dry. But this was, after the rains, very dry as well. This part of this park actually matches up very comparable to this side. It's this area right here that there's heavily it's a lot of trees basically. But this area would allow us a parking here which is utilized much fewer than the one next to the tennis courts. So it does make sense to strongly consider that. It is a dry area. The challenge is this area poses, I think it's dry enough, and we went a couple times with the rain events to make sure, is we're going to have to clear out a little bit of the canopy here. They're gum trees, and 2 of them aren't doing well anyway, so it's good we walked it. We're going to have to put a culvert in, and we're going to have to get water to this area. Okay, we don't have any water close to it right now. Now, we have a trencher, we can run the plow, our guys can do it, but that is the other concern. Yes, sir.
What's to the upper left of this? What's like here? Yeah, down a little bit, like in there.
Here?
Yeah.
It's all trees, wooded.
On both sides.
Yes.
No building, no facility.
That's where the original
No.
construction was going to be, right?
Well, it was right here. The original was going to go right around here. The advantage here, okay, here's the Manklin, that's where you come into the park. The advantage back here is it doesn't put it right on the street. It does move it a little further back, which is probably more desirable. You know, so that actually makes sense. So I think either this location or 2 are 2 good locations for us. Yes, sir.
Bob, just visually, it appears that the square footage of one is multiple times the square footage of that narrow strip.
Actually, they're fairly,
Are they
they're
similar?
very, very close. 2.87 and 3.01 acres.
Really?
Is that- yeah, we mapped it out using the GIS. That's why you're getting these shots.
Yeah.
Now, we can manipulate, if we get in there and we look, this one's preset. This one, that standard run, you put a gate in here for left and right side. That's an easy one. This one, I don't like this. It just doesn't seem to work well. The flow is not there, plus it's wet. And then if you go to the third one, this one seems to make sense. It does not disrupt tennis. It does not disrupt any of the other, which is something to think about. Yes, sir.
The way you would have it drawn, does that imply perhaps a 2-stage park, or not a 2-stage, that's the wrong word.
Large and
A
small.
divide-
Large and small.
Large and small.
2
All
separate
of them
sections.
Yeah, all have large and small. The
Yeah.
second one did not have the divider in because it was just a quick measurement. We have Public Works too. When they made the turn, we wanted to make sure folks know.
So you have a center entrance there.
You go into that gate, shut it behind you, and then you open a gate to either side to go in. Now there is well, that way your dog doesn't get loose.
No,
You open the one. And it's just what we found when we were talking to folks that have much more experience in this. And with Salisbury, Ocean City, we looked at some of the other dog parks.
To me, this makes the most sense. because this is also compatible to make the edges 25s rather than 90-degree turns with the boat. So the design of this, its location, to me makes more sense than even it did when it wrapped around the basketball court.
Yeah, I didn't like the basketball court as much.
But the other side, I think, definitely sounds.
This is dry. This is dry enough, so that's a plus. So I think it's really option 2 or 3.
Barry, you worked on this. You and Ray Pearl.
Yeah, I think that having to bring the water in and whatever is something that we were already planning on doing.
Yeah, we can.
anyway.
Yeah, we
So,
figured we'd do that.
Even though the other side would be much easier, we were already planning on doing that. So, personally, I think that this is the best option. It has the things that they need in order to make it successful.
It does move it from the tennis and the
Yeah.
playground, so it does give a little separation, which should be considered. So I'm okay with that. You don't see it. If you walk out there,
No, I'm aware of that. The other one is that's a Crystal Bay restricted area on the right-hand side that you're talking about.
where we are, we're okay. We did look at that. We're okay, but we're okay here as well. So
No,
we're,
I like
we're
that.
good on either side. I think this, if I had to choose, would be the better of the two. But exploring it all, despite some people getting wound up, I think was important, especially if I was bringing it to you guys.
Absolutely.
So they're the 3. I'd recommend this. We're still, depending on which one changes the fencing, so I didn't get the final quote. The fence material we looked at, 4 different types of fence material. We looked at galvanized, we looked at coated, we looked at 4-foot, 5-foot, we looked at aluminum, like you did around the pools. My favorite choice is the aluminum, but it's not the most cost effective. The most reasonable one is the straight galvanized, but the one sort of in the middle, and it's real close to the same price as galvanized, is the coated. It's either black or green. And the only thing, apparently there's a infused versus coated, and that's the only thing I haven't figured out what the pricing is.
Infused is the one that's a lot less chance of having a problem rusting later.
Yes, sir.
In the interest of time,
Yeah.
and moving this thing forward, what are your next steps, Bob? To go back and get pricing on?
Well, we know it's going to be under it'll be a 30 or below.
Right.
Because here's how that works. We had said 30 early on,
Right.
based on a square footage price. All that's going to mean is how far in these directions that 30 gets us. The community group already raised 15, so they did it. So it's a matter of the board matching the other half of it,
Right.
and then we'll just size this comparable to make sure we meet that. And if we go with the galvanized or the coated fence, and again, I just need to check a little more on that infused versus the other. It's more aesthetically pleasing. But I mean, where it is, I think we've got the options. And we'll do a 5-foot fence versus a 4-foot. Apparently, 4-foot is not optimal for small dogs, or for large dogs. And the reason I'd say 5 for all of it, if we ever had to flip flop or shut one for a little while, we don't want to create, so it all matches. It's simple. If we have an issue, we replace it easily. Yes, sir.
So having discussed and evaluated the 3 location alternatives, you're recommending this one here.
I'm recommending this
and,
one.
I don't think, you just want to sense to the board that we agree with that, and let's get going with it?
Actually, Pete,
There's a motion later on.
There's a motion.
Yeah.
There's no more questions, we'll just move
Well, the
on.
motion I'm not sure we need, but,
Well,
We've already approved the agenda.
actually, we do need a motion.
well, there's going to be a motion required for the capital expenditure.
Right.
Yeah. At which time, he's going to get
Discuss the motion
bids,
and
just like we buy other things, okay?
Right.
Next. Thank you, sir.
Okay, something, and it was interesting. Following the recent newsletter that went out, I had a member call me. It was actually sent an email. We followed it, corresponded. Great input was we've stopped identifying or highlighting residents, or pointing out the positive. In the newsletter I said, look, we ought to be more positive. He said, why don't you go a step further and bring it out in the meetings a little more? And I thought that was a great idea. And when we started looking at some of the recent things, this one jumped right out why we didn't recognize more as a community. We had some folks that were recognized from the Governor's Volunteerism Award. Pretty prestigious award. and it's a big deal. If you look at how they were chosen, sustained commitment to Maryland's most pressing human and community needs, these are the criteria to meet this. Engage in meaningful volunteer services that make a measurable difference, represent extraordinary acts of generosity and kindness, and have an impact on the greater community. These were the things they looked at. They had well over 180 in Maryland applications for folks that were put in for this, or folks or groups. We had a group recognized, which I thought was pretty cool. Marie Gilmore. Okay, I'm sorry the red's a little hard to see with the light out. But president of the Veterans Memorial. Okay, and Ed Little, instructional program coordinator for the Veterans Memorial. Pretty significant. They went, it's hard to see here, but it's a big medallion type of badge, or it was a big event that they represent those groups and were recognized for it. I thought I'd bring it to, as a positive as part of the community. These are things that tend to go overlooked. We try to put them in the newsletters when we get them, but I thought having it at the board meetings as recognition was equally as important.
Good idea. Congratulations.
Yeah, very, very, very neat. It represents the best of our community, and that's more of what we should be highlighting. Okay, the other thing that community groups have adopted, which is pretty neat, is the Adopt a Park program. We have some folks that have jumped in to do that. The program's open to any citizen group or community organization or a combination of to adopt one of our parks, and they take care of it. What they do, basically, they adopt the park for 2 years. That's what we're looking for. They have 4 times a year they go out and they do a cleanup, but they do a major fall and spring cleanup. Our community has certainly jumped up in a big way to participate in this. And what we did was the ones that have been adopted so far, we put the Adopt a Park with the community group's name on it, and it's up at the park. The ones that have been adopted so far, Bridgewater Park by the Democratic Women's Club, so we appreciate that very much. Turns Park, Friends of Turns Landing. I didn't have pictures for either of those folks. We did have pictures here, and again, they'll be better seen on the internet because they're clear, right, Dave? Dave, you can see them clear there, right?
Yes,
Okay, yeah. He said, huh? Banklin Park, Ocean Pines Platform Tennis Group, so thank you for that group. Very excited about that. Bainbridge Park, Eastern Shore International Mountain Biking Association. The head of that actually contacted me about trying to find ways to expand our trails and use of that, so it's pretty cool. The last one was Pintail Park, Ocean City Power Squadron, large group, and if you went out or went by it today, they were out there in droves, raked the entire park and cleaned it. It looks spectacular. So it's that type of community involvement that we want to make sure we highlight. We appreciate these volunteers. We've also had some groups at the golf course, not necessarily adopt a park, but the golf course where they've come and helped with the flowers and those type of things. So it's pretty cool getting more community involvement in this way. And we really do appreciate it. We want to make sure we highlight it at our meetings. Golf course. For those who haven't been out there, this is really, and I want to hit the front light and see if I can get a little better. These things are coming up. For those who don't golf, for those who haven't seen it, the investment we made there is showing up spectacular. If you get a chance to ride out, there we go, and look at it. This is the fairway. These fairways, this fairway on first, they weren't filling in very thick. Okay, what happened when we did the work to them in years past, we didn't give them time to mature and thicken up before we started playing on them, and they could never catch up. This downtime with this weather pattern, it's really starting to get thick on the fairways. This is one of the additional benefits of doing the 9 holes, the greens themselves, not having to play on those fairways, aerification, and getting to it with fertilization has reaped the benefit. They are spectacular. One of the greens, and again, the pictures do not do it justice. The roll, the play, all the seams are gone. Anybody that's been out there, I know we have a few golfers at the table, it's really taking shape. What we did was we used the debris, the spoils I talked a little bit about last month to create some new elements on the course, extending the tips. I almost sound like a golfer, but that's really just adding another tee box a little deeper. And what it did was prevent us from hauling the dirt clear to the other side where it had damaged in some areas on some of the, anytime you're moving the heavy loads back and forth, you're doing some damage. This actually works out good. where it opened up and cleared it out, these things are coming in. Even the grass that was planted via sprigging versus the side is all starting to come up, and it's really looking good out there.
I always wondered if I could get longer holes, Bob, so thanks.
Well, there
for
you
that.
Helps you get,
Look,
helps you get more
Was
swing.
it true, Bob, the board members actually tee out from the back tees?
well, yes, but the
Since I don't play,
the
that's
challenge
very
is
nice
they
of you.
won't clear this water if they do. For those that know, I can tell you there's a group. This is a fairway. Fourth fairway's been a struggle area for us. Just one of the areas that has not come in. If you go out there now, look at it, it's coming in very healthy and very good. I mean, this is part of taking our time, doing it right, putting the energy into it has the benefits are really starting to show. 6T, where we used, again, T-box was there, we created another one here. All we did was not move the spoils across to 11 and 12, which meant less damage, less work, quicker recovery. It's worked out. If you go out there and look.
Less cost as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, but it's just opened it up. It looks fantastic. 6 fairway. This was on trouble spots we had. I mean, it's coming in. So as a non-golfer, I saw it when we started to work. I was so excited at where we are now because I go out regularly and check on it. Some things that are happening that are real positives other than the growth, and you see how beautiful it looks. Some things that are coming up, some events that I want to point out to you folks. Members preview, 31st. Okay, we had said June 1st was our opening. We've held to that. We're actually doing a opening for those members who are active, golf members who are active with have an active golf membership are invited out the day before we open to play. We're going to have complimentary lunch, carts, range. It's all open to those that have a membership. Okay? So it is a way of saying thank you, pushing through the 9 holes, working with us, doubling up on the back 9. Those that stuck with us get the benefit of this. But keep in mind, the holes are not just a golfer. You know, we didn't just do it for the golf community. We did it for the greater community. So there's some other things. Resident Appreciation Weekend. Okay? 31st we open. Our golf community, those that have paid the membership, get to golf. The next day we have the Ravens Roost tournament, and they're very excited about coming. The next 2 days after that, it's open to our residents. It's Resident Appreciation Weekend. Okay? What it's going to be is that weekend, Ocean Pines residents can play golf on our course for $5 for the green fees. Okay? Again, keep in mind, they're helping foot the bill for the project. They deserve to have access to the property. So this was a way of giving back. They'll pay the regular cart fees. Okay? So to play on our course, 9 holes is going to be $15, $25 for 18. Okay? Just a way of, we want everyone to come out and join and see what it's about. Lastly, Resident Preview Month is for the entire month of June. Discount rate for golf, $40 during the day and $25 after 4, carts and greens. Okay? Very, very economical for those who want to come out and see what's been done, those that want to come out and play. We're trying to find all kinds of ways to invite you back. After all, it's not just the golfer's property, it's the association's property. So if you want to see where your money went, you want to see what it is, you will see the difference on the course. Okay? Everybody have these? And we'll put these up. Everyone's going to be aware of them. So we're real excited. I think our members are really going to appreciate those that stuck with us. We very much appreciate it. Just part of the Greens project when it was underway. Okay, let's talk tennis. Another project that we just recently wrapped up. I want to point out to you folks exactly where we are with that. This is our complex layout. Okay, this was actually off of the NOAA weather site. In this particular day, we've done drainage work. I told you, we talked about getting drainage work down there in lieu of replacing the courts because they keep cracking and shifting, and we keep having problems. And what do we do year after year? We budget a lot of money, and we repave and we repave and we repave. Same issue comes up: water, water, water. We set out to do it differently this year. We mapped out the whole area of the tennis complex. We've got stormwater management involved, we got the county involved, and we found a way to redivert the water and improve the drainage out there. We're just about at sea level at the tennis courts. That's part of our issue. So we had to work real hard to find ways to divert the water. What we wanted to do is everything was completed from the work. not the aesthetic part of putting the gravel back, making sure the dirt was all back, but the drainage all got put in. After we did that, we needed a significant rainfall so we could see how it performed before we start putting things back into the right shape. It took a few weeks. As you all know, we had a drought. The day we measured it, okay, if you pull it up on the Berlin map, it says a ½ inch. But if you pull up on the map of it, you see we got a pretty significant amount of rain. 1 1/4 inches is what we measured. Good day to go out and take a look at how it performed. And you can see by the colors of the green, that does match what we found. Hard to see, but I want to point this out. Sonia went down, Rankin Parks, she's responsible for the complex. She went back down at 10:30. The rain had cleared up about 9 that day. Went down and took some snapshots. We need to see if what we've spent is working. See where all the water is, all around here. 2 hours later, we're at just about sea level with this property. Majority of it's dry, except for a little bit right here. Showed us in 2-hour period, water's moving. That's what our goal was. If you go around the complex, okay, she tried to stand 2 hours later at the exact spots. She was a little deeper on this one, but you can see the water was deeper and wider, and you see where it's starting to fade away and drain away. It's moving. That's the whole intent, is to move the water. It's 2 hours later, 1 1/4 inch rain event. Okay, water puddling at 10:30, okay? Watering this, you see where the line is, where it's been drying. All this here is dry, and now it's just wet in this area. Pretty good. It's showing us that the work that was completed actually is moving it. This one's pretty good to see because you can see the water down the area, you can see the water all setting. There's only a little bit here. It's going through our drains and dissipate, which is what our goal was. Bigger, there's the matchup. Just so we're not giving you don't see the fence because I had to cover part of it. But big, deep water here, okay, when you try to look down the sight line, you can see this went clear out pretty deep in here, all covered. It's draining. That's what we're looking for. That's the result that will help us have a permanent solution to the courts. Instead of just patching and redoing every year without getting to the final solution, we believe we've found a pretty good piece here. Same thing. You see where it's almost dry. You can see the wet. Again, when I put both sides, stand them spinning, come in and put them up. All these are going to be available. You guys can look at them. This is the only area. This is the one major area that has not yet been completed. We looked at it. 2 rain events. We've gone out and looked. This is up when you first walk into your park. You first walk up the tennis complex right there on your right. You walk up to this. There's a nice tree here. In this area right there to the right, the water just sits. And if you look at it and you map it out, it's hard. Everything's leveled. It's hard to get to move or point it in any direction. Now, the upside is, other than aesthetics, it doesn't really have any impact on the playability. The courts are drying out. So this is something we need to figure out, but it's not a pressing issue. It doesn't prevent the play, which is a primary goal. We've been working real hard from marketing, trying to help the tennis folks, creating new brochures, putting information out for them. These are the new rack cards. Just, we've created them. They're out there. We're pushing them out. They're available in a lot of locations. Another piece of material we're putting out. So not only are we doing repairs to the facility, but we're also trying to be very engaged from a marketing strategy to create more membership, more opportunity for folks to come use the facility. If we're not trying to assist in that, why put the money to fix the product? Okay, other things going on, Ocean Pines, Farmers Market, very, very excited about that. That's coming. We've had some very, very positive feedback, folks knowing that's coming. So we're excited about that. There's some work, a lot of work, and I appreciate all the work on that. A lot of work is going into getting that set up. Local farmers, local produce, it's going to be right here in Whitehorse Park. Very excited about that. The kayak rentals and tours are back this year. People are real excited about it. Again, we're coming into the season where all this becomes available, so we want to make sure we point those out. And then, as you all know, we're getting ready. All 5 pools are open. The beach club, we put some new signage up. This awning is actually replaced. They're putting the new one up Friday. All the pools are now open. Now, they're not open for use, but they're all, we got them up a little bit early this year. We got our pumps work. Everything's done. The only challenge right now is cold. Yeah. But they're ready to go for the weekend. Okay, last slide. Other than the question slide, this is the biggie. This is the numbers. Okay, unaudited, and Art, if I don't say unaudited, he will beat me all the way down the street. Okay, unaudited, okay? But these are the actual numbers at the end of the year. I'm very, very excited about it. It was a push the last quarter, but we ended the year $72,000 in the black. That's our variance, a positive variance. Okay? Now, there are going to be people that are going to want to talk about individual pieces of it. Okay? And part of the challenge came up today, and I would like to ask the board while we're all together how you'd like myself and the administration to handle, in particular, the monthly reporting of this. I get it out at every board meeting, but I try to get it to you all in advance, within a day or two, and before anybody else gets to see it. We've already been pummeled with some questions about this today because this information got out to a member of the community, and they're asking them questions before you all have seen it. And publicly, I'd like to know how you all want me to respond. I can, when we print them for you guys, just put it out to the public. Out of professionalism and courtesy, I try to give it to you a couple, so you can have a day or two to digest it before you're hit with questions. I believe Mr. Wentworth was hit with questions today at the Budget and Finance Committee when I know that most of you hadn't seen them yet. So I'd like to know what you would like done moving forward as a board, because I don't want to be in the spot where I'm not providing it to a member timely, trying to provide professional courtesy to you, and it's not extended back to us because the information goes out. So someone's got to tell me, or the board has to direct me, and the staff, how you'd like that handled moving forward.
What handle?
When we print those, I'd like the board to tell me, do I print it off to give them out to the community immediately, or do I give you the professional courtesy of having it a day or two to review as the board prior to giving it out to anyone else? That's what I've done all year. And I've stuck to it because I think it's the right thing to do. But if we're giving it out, other than, I don't want to be the stopping point to hold it, because the last thing I need to do is be pushing back on community members if the board wants it out early.
Well, my personal opinion is it's public information, and when it's releasable, I don't consider it particularly a courtesy. Other board members may disagree. I said I personally think it's public information, and that it should be released within reason. As soon as it can be. But we had a case this morning, and I managed to catch an hour at least of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting because I didn't have a committee conflict this time. And the question with Budget and Finance was, well, you know, we're getting last month's information all the time. I mean, the information was available on Monday, and their meeting was this morning, but none of them had anything except the month-old data to discuss. So, I mean, there are how you work it out is I think, I think you should just use some common sense in terms of, who needs it and what's the need to know.
Well, common sense for me would allow the board members who are the senior leadership of the organization to have it a day or two to digest before you get questioned on it. But if that's wrong, redirect it.
I'm not saying it's wrong, but I do think it's not hurting anything either. I mean, I'm not pummeled with questions or anything of the kind.
You gave it out, so you had a reason for doing it. I just want to know by the majority of the board what you'd like us as a management team to do. I don't want to be caught between the board and the membership.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think it's unfair to the board to have information released before we've even had an opportunity to get it, to review it. And I think there's a reasonable expectation that we as board members, and of course I'm the treasurer and more financially oriented than others, to have an opportunity to review it before I'm pummeled with questions about it. Seems to me it's a very unfair situation for a board member to be making copies of all of our financial statements and distributing them to people before we even had a chance to see it. So I don't think that's the right way to conduct business.
Well, I don't know how many.
Now, let me finish.
Go ahead.
Now, the Budget and Finance Committee, I believe it would be helpful for them to schedule the meetings so that they have those meetings after the release of the financial statement. A week later would accommodate a lot of different needs, I think. As I understand it, our Carmine got those things. It's year end, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of work to be done in getting even an audited financial statement. All right? Now, does the community expect us as board members or me as treasurer to have an opportunity to review and assess and maybe ask some questions of management before they go out and are thrown into the public arena for comment and criticism? I think common courtesy suggests we ought to have that opportunity. Maybe I'm the only voice here at this table that feels that way, but I feel that way.
Bill?
Well, I'm the board liaison to the Budget and Finance Committee, and I was obviously present at the meeting when this occurred. And the reaction from the Budget and Finance Committee was, well, this is being given out by a board member or anyone prior to them receiving it, and they feel that they should be receiving it, and rightfully so. It's going out to other OPA members. At the same time, at that time, I explained to the committee, to the chair of the committee, that, for example, we did not get that information until Monday. Normally, we get all the information by Thursday or Friday, which still would not give them enough time to analyze the information prior to our meeting this evening. So I recommend that if you really want to be able to make use of the information, that you should probably reschedule when you're meeting, at which time, as a result, they made a motion later on in the meeting to move all their meetings to the fourth Tuesday of the month.
Well, in this case, they already rescheduled their meeting, and we rescheduled ours.
Correct. But talking about the future down the road.
But that, I think the board, nonetheless, they all come out about the same time, about the 15th of the month. And unless something is specifically labeled confidential, I have the right to confer with anybody in this association. You know, Bob has his private group of advisors that meet in secret.
Meet in secret?
Yes.
Okay.
And well, they're not open meetings, okay? And I can ask, who's the board advisors? I mean, I do, in fact, talk to other people within the community. I try to, on purpose, to see if I can get the reasonable advice and things that I may not fully understand, or get different perspectives on it. And I retain the right to do that. Now, if you want to stamp secret over those documents, then go right ahead. You can vote 6-1 against. But I think secret is a big part of the problem with this board right now. And it's a perception in the community that it's a problem. So, Pete, I'm going to continue to do what I feel is the right thing with the information that I have, unless I'm specifically told, as in a confidential meeting, which, by the way, leaked out. Yeah, it did. Let's understand something, folks, that we are a representative form of governance here. We are 7 people elected to represent the folks who live in this community, and we have an obligation to understand the issues and have the information and have it in our brains to some level before we get, as the words have been, an onslaught of input. We also have a right to have an expectation that all of us around this table will treat information in a like manner within some reasonable sharing of what we share and what we don't share, and that kind of thing. The comment that somehow we're this secretive crew of people, the 7 of us sitting around this table, is quite frankly ludicrous. Well, I don't think it's my turn. Go ahead.
And then I
It's
vote
my
on
turn.
next.
I've heard that comment made many times in recent times. Information is not withheld. Information is openly presented. It is made available to everyone in a timely fashion. The argument has always been, are we a representative form of government, or should we just have a New England town meeting where everyone gets everything all at the same time, and we don't even have a role to play here in the sense of understanding it? This information is made public by the Budget and Finance Committee doing the right thing of moving their meeting. They now have 3 weeks to actually analyze the data, not 3 days. They can actually analyze the data for 3 weeks and possibly come back to us with an analysis that's more than 48 hours long. Okay, so as far as the Budget and Finance Committee, I think they've made the right move so that they've got time to do the analysis. The issue here at this point right now is there is a motion later in that has been put forward to this organization. I read it. I'm assuming the others have read it. As to when information will go out, we will handle the rest of this discussion at that time.
I'm not going to debate the merits. We'll handle that another time. I want to respond to Dave's statement. Dave, I did not say that you do not have a right to data. I did not say that you did not have a right to share with whomever you wish to. What I said was that I think we ought to show a little more respect for fellow board members and allowing us the opportunity to review certain information before it is disseminated. You have every right to do whatever you feel is necessary. I ask you to be a little more respectful of your fellow board members. That's all.
Now, Rob, I'd like to get back to the numbers.
Right. At some point, I want to be directed of how you want. I don't want to be caught in the middle anymore. I think
It's
wrong.
really unfortunate that we are where we are.
I'm asking, and I'm asking in a public forum because I want to know what the majority
I
of the
hope
board
the
wants.
majority of the board feels that.
Okay, now, this one leaking out didn't bother me because the numbers look outstanding. Okay, I got to tell you, this was a good one to leak. And you're going to have people that want to pick. A good friend of mine uses a pepper analogy, which always comes to mind when people are trying to pick at very little things, okay? But I'll tell you this. When someone talks about management and trying to run your books and run your numbers, okay, we're in the black, folks. That's the primary goal. Now, you can go and look individually. And yes, the yacht club underperformed. We've been saying it for 6 months. Been saying it every month I present this information. There should be no surprise there. The surprise, which should be a positive one, is the bottom line's all black, folks.
It has been.
It has been. We're managing our numbers to the bottom line. We're effectively watching everything. It's our role as a management team, certainly my responsibility, to make sure that we deliver against our budget holistically. Now, it's easy to say components aren't working. 30 plus years of running things inefficiently does not get turned around in a year and a half. We are making the turn. We have made great strides forward, I would argue, in every area. David, who left so he could get some time with his family, is the latest addition to help us fix this, to close the gap. I'm extremely confident he will. Every day we're trying to make strides forward. I'm very proud of the fact, and the entire team, the entire management team, all the department heads that worked very closely with me to make sure we came in ahead of budget. We're in the black. Second year in a row, we're chipping away, actually third
Third year in a row.
chipping away at a deficit that was inherited. So anybody wants to argue otherwise, and they're going to pick and say, well, aquatics. Yes, we identified aquatics being in the red. We're making changes. We're trying to, every piece that's not functioning well, we're trying to tweak it. But the overall, when you look at any company, if you say, oh, we're a homeowner association. Well, if you look at it, we run it business-like, which means the bottom line, how do we perform? The way we protect our property values is not to be upside down at the end of the year, it's to be on the positive side. And I'll tell you, we did that. Talk to any financial advisor, any banker, anyone with strong financial background, not people that want to go, this one issue didn't work. You look at the entire puzzle when you see a company, and this is what you want to end up with. And I will tell you, the team worked very hard to get us here. And with your support and some of the endeavors we tried this year, the extension of the hours, the extension of the yacht club, it was all of us pulling together. So I'm just proud of the entire team and proud of working with the board to get us to this point. And I think the community, when they see this, are going to be very, very pleased with the bottom line. Yes, sir.
The bottom line is against the budget that we created out of, pretty much our imaginations. That applies
Not
to
my imagination.
that applies to things that were lost, that we where we lost money, and applies to the areas where we gained. If you look, we talk about that $500,000 that was lost and that we had to try and make up. That $500,000 came because a board before us imagined that we could break even on the yacht club. And when we didn't come close, guess what? We lost it. All of the other numbers were fairly solid. If you look at, and except the golf course, of course. If you look at these numbers, it's not like, the losses, the red numbers up there that worry me so much. It's what have we lost in terms of labor? I mean, if you're looking at general maintenance, you can look at the variance, and that's negative. You say, we saved money on general maintenance. We saved money on public works. We saved money on recreation and parks. We saved money on administration. Those are all the negatives. But what have we lost by doing that? How much of that has come because, in fact, we were short-staffed during the last few months? I mean, and 2 people behind us were just hired this year for this month. And the people who they replaced were gone for several months. It's what it is. Okay? It's what it is. Okay? There's the difference. It's positive. That's better than it's negative. But on the other hand, if you don't understand the whole thing, I don't think you're telling quite the whole truth.
All right, I'll make it simple, Mr. Stevens. This will be the simplest to go to your point. Forget all the pieces. You want to make it simple? Revenue, expenses, bottom line. Simplest way to do it. You want to keep it simple and say I'm hiding or not doing something?
I'm not saying you're hiding
But you're saying all
anything.
that you're going to pieces. Once again, we had more revenue than we did expenses. I would argue, bottom line, that's good management. And if you want to go each component, I'll be happy to do it with you. Making decisions, which are very difficult at times, when to hire or not hire, when to work with the resources you have and stretch them, okay, as opposed to just hiring others. Well, part of what I do is talk to everybody.
I know you do.
Yeah, that's part of who I am.
But I don't turn as good as I used to.
Fair enough. So my point is, I'm very, very proud of where we are. You're going to get the feedback, but I think Mr. Gomsak, and we bumped heads throughout the year on things, I think he'll look at, yes. I think he'll back. You look at the numbers, talk to our minor controller and look at it. We've made some tough decisions to hold our numbers down, which I think is the right thing to do as an association. So I'm just telling you guys did a good job working with me on it. I'm pleased with the staff for doing it.
There's a lot of noise back there.
Thank you.
Okay? Any questions about
More
this?
questions of Bob? Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, we're at 10 minutes of 9. We will move to public comment.
I had a couple others, but they moved me off that. I can cover the others at the end.
Sorry.
He moved me on, so.
I'm sorry about that. I thought
That's all right.
I thought we were at
The
questions.
lights were off. I couldn't read.
It was the last.
Go ahead, Joe.
That was
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. A number of items I was going to touch on quickly. I'm not looking for any particular response. But I'm wondering, I think it's arguably true that the elections that we have each year are perhaps one of the most important things that happen in this community. And I'm wondering why, unlike in recent past years, we're having the candidates forum at the country club as opposed to this facility. I assume that somebody else is using the facility. That's unfortunate if that's the case, because this is where that candidates forum should take place.
I understand somebody's got this. Dan, do you know why?
There were 2 days to choose from, both days in this particular facility at Brook.
Okay.
Who is using the facility on that night that's more important than our election?
I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, figured. Pete, you mentioned the yacht club, the banquets are profitable, and I'm sure that's true. But as was brought out, you provide a lot of information about revenue and zero information about costs. You did mention something to the effect of 75% margin, which sounds pretty good. About 8 years ago, I went to a budget finance committee and proposed that the cost tracking on the food and beverage operations at the yacht club be separated to keep separate accounts of both normal food and beverage and banquet. There was a big discussion. Art was there, was involved. Nothing ever happened with it, although the committee at the time seemed to think it was a good idea. The point of it is, gentlemen, we don't have an exact accounting of all costs associated with banquets. It simply doesn't exist. Is that correct, Art?
Sorry, you don't have to.
You don't have to
answer the board.
You don't have to answer. At any rate, it may be profitable, but we don't know how much. We don't know whether it makes 10%, 50%, 80%. I had, back 8 years ago, Pete, the number mentioned was 90% margin. So maybe we're doing not quite as good now. We're only making 75%. Raising the bulkheads, somebody said. I live on the water, and I think if the bulkheads were raised in front of my home, and homes along my area, by a foot or a foot and a half, I'd have a flooded yard constantly every time it rained. Unless you put a lot of holes in it, I guess, but I don't know what good that would do. Dog park. After listening to what went on, it seems like we're almost where we were a year ago. With regard to tennis stuff that you mentioned, Bob, I'm a past president of the Ocean Pines Tennis Club, and that's one of the best facilities on the eastern shore of Maryland for tennis players. And I'm happy to see that you're maintaining that. One other quick item. Excuse me for taking so long. With regard to the numbers and who gets them and when, I understand your point, Pete, about being a little more respectful to fellow board members, but ultimately I would prefer to see the board more respectful of association members. These numbers are not going to change. The numbers are numbers. Why this is such a big deal now in the last couple of years is interesting to me, because having been attending board meetings for 20 years, we've had them in the past. Past boards have been able to provide these to the Budget and Finance Committee prior to the board meeting. This was standard procedure for I don't know how long. Now all of a sudden it's a major problem. In terms of numbers, Bob, you kind of put anybody who wanted to comment on the losses, some major losses on the defensive, by essentially saying the only thing that matters is the bottom line. And I would agree to some extent. However, 3 of the items, we had $629,000 in losses, actual losses. Now, while the bottom line on everything may be a $100,000 profit, it would be a lot better if it was $750,000 profit. Money is money, and $629,000 is no small amount of money in this association. And I know you have problems with the number of those 3 items, especially golf this year. But let's not trivialize those kinds of losses, and I think that's generally what's being attempted here. A lot of money. Anyway, thank you very much.
She had her hand up first. Ma'am? Name and address?
Jill Odierno, 83 Brandywine. Good evening. I'm absolutely appalled at the behavior that I just saw at this table tonight. I think you guys owe each other an apology. You really should be respectful to each other. Just on behalf, as an association member, it's horrible to see that occur up here. Other than that, I don't understand the Adopt a Park program. It bothers me. I thought that's what Parks and Recreation was supposed to do. Don't we have enough money? I pay my dues. It really bothers me to hear the advertisements on the radio. I want you to think about that as you do that. Almost every single thing that you guys went over, I have issues with for a whole bunch of reasons. some of them legal, that are up there that probably should be brought to your attorney. I'm not your attorney, so I don't have to say for them, thank God. I also have some issues with your private meeting that you guys are holding. You guys can only hold private meetings for certain things. You need to be more specific with what you're holding it for. So. And I do think that you guys need to have the budget out and make it accessible to everybody. I don't think that's a question.
Ernie Artis, 37 Quarterstaff Place. I'm here to vote no on the referendum when it comes up for just two reasons, okay? One, why attach a loan to anything you want to do? You now have $7 million in the bank and you want to borrow money? You want to put this community in debt? You want to borrow money, pay more interest on the money you're going to borrow than the money you're making in the bank. This is stupid. That's all there is about it. The next thing is the building's up in the air. Who wants to wait for a stupid elevator to go into a restaurant? Who wants to climb 20 steps to go into a restaurant? And worse than that, if there's ever emergency evacuation there because of fire, the elevator's down, how does everybody get out down those steps? Whose child or grandchild is going to get seriously injured trying to get out of there? These are the two reasons I can't support the referendum, okay? The next thing is, in 2009, Tom Olson reduced the operating budget by $220,000. In the year that just finished, Bob Thompson raised that budget by $660,000. And the yacht club, unfortunately, lost more than twice the amount of money than Tom Olson's final year here. And for that, Bob got a 17% raise. Now, Bob got a 17% raise, and our cops didn't get a 3% across the board raise. Think about that. Bob Thompson adds no value to my home. None. The police department does. You directors are the boss of this community. As Jim pointed out tonight, all county employees got a 2% raise across the board. You directors have an obligation to treat all your employees equally. Everybody should have got a 3% raise here, including Thompson. He didn't deserve a 17% raise. Everybody deserved a 3% across the board raise. Without the police here, let me tell you something. You get the drug dealers and the gangbangers in here, you'll see property values drop by 20 and 40%. Thank you, and have a nice night.
Anything else? Okay, media. And now we'll go back to move right past Bob State Highway Administration using it real quick.
I'm sure with no value.
Try to live up to it.
It was, what's that?
Is for public comment, is it over?
Oh, no.
No, I asked it. Go ahead. I asked if there's anybody else. You didn't hear me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Years ago, full of hosting, 12-year-old guy. Years ago, when we had the meeting in the country club, everybody had a mic. We sit here, I don't know, you hear nothing. We spend so much money. Buy for everybody a mic. And the secretary, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, you mean. I'm still not satisfied how the meetings goes. The meeting is too much controlled by the management. You people have to control the meeting. Management talk for an hour. You people not keeping control. It has to stop something. I told you that once before. It's a lot of board members told me the same thing too. The management is taking you people what to do. That has to stop. That's all I got to say.
I miss anybody else?
I'm sorry. There was something that bothered me. You'd mentioned that You guys, it was a form of government that you guys were running here.
Form of governance is what I.
You guys are actually a corporation.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
why I wanted to remind y'all. Because it seemed like you weren't sure if it was a representative government or whatever. You had gone into that a little
I believe
bit.
you said governance?
It's a governance.
I said
Governance.
governance, actually.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure it's clear.
It's okay. Yes, I do know what we are. Okay, Bob, go ahead. Wow, hey, look at
Great year, Bob.
I think so, and I'm good with it. So, all right. Had a request. This came from State Highway Administration, and I want to point this out. I couldn't get it scanned. It was a big document to get off on the computer, but basically what it does. State Highway Administration.
State
This North Gate.
Okay. Here's the North Gate. Okay.
Oh, I see. This is
Okay. All right. This is the Gillis property.
Right.
Okay. It's a right in, right out. The request came because of what they were going to do with their right out. Okay, is to a right out and push people right out into this, into 589. What they want to do is extend where our entrance lane comes in here. They just want to do a continuous lane instead of cutting off here.
Yeah.
So these are coming out and then you're coming back in state highways saying take it straight down to our turn lane, so this becomes, folks coming out, folks coming in one long lane. It just creates a safer entrance. And that's what's been sent to me. I talked to Joe Moore about it. He followed up with the State Highway Administration to say, hey, is it, help with this? And they indeed backed up that this is what they would like to see done. They need an easement from the board to allow for that stretch of land. And it's a 65 or 70 foot by 100 easement. And what it basically does is where our turn lane is, the land actually comes out like this. They want the easement for that stretch of land so they can just make that one straight turn lane in, turn lane out.
Makes sense to me. Safety wise.
Slow down. Slow down.
Slow down in what
Don't go
way?
away. When you say safer, okay, it's not, you're gonna go from one lane here with the right lane in, okay? I don't know where the island's gonna be because I don't understand this little arrow, but I'm assuming that they're gonna use the island to break this lane. See where they've got to move?
In and out.
Yeah.
Right
let's see
in,
where
right
this-
out.
Here's the lane coming in. Here's the lane going out, and this is where the easement goes. As soon as the traffic gets here, I'm going to get from here, where I'm driving, to make a right turn into my
Lane's going to be marked. All this is
Oh,
an extra
you
width
can-
of the
you
shoulder
can-
from there
you
to
can-
there
You
for
can
safety.
mark it to turn purple. You've got cars coming out of here.
You're still having to.
I have to
It's
get.
only for the right out of there. Has nothing to do with racetrack.
Wait a while. How do I get across the lane? Okay, right now we have a turn lane.
Having to
They're
merge to
taking
the right
they're
in order to
talking
get it.
about turning that turn lane into a full lane from the exit of the property.
Correct.
To where our north gate entrance is. Now they're going to make it a straight line. That means there are cars coming out of that turn. And I'm going to be sitting there trying to get into that turn lane to make a right-hand turn onto the bridge. And there's no traffic control that's stopping me or the guy behind me from creating an accident right there. To me, it sounds, I'm sorry, I disagree with the State Highway Administration. That sounds like a problem waiting to happen. I'd like somebody else to sit down and really think about that for a second.
I think I come off of Michael Creek, every day and make that right turn. You ever go in that, it's pretty long turn lane, and you got all kinds of people, all kinds of different things. The ones that go right in or stop there, the ones that will go to the end and stop and never go in. There's the ones that go behind them. Okay, well, that's just a right turn problem. But when you've got, it's extended into people coming into the other way, I wonder, here's a question, Bob. If you have an extended lane, okay, and there's
Yeah, it comes out.
yeah, whether it be dotted lines or hash marks or whatever, says you gotta get back in here. And then you have a separation between the four where we go in here. That way those people have to wait until the cars on the highway get back and get in there. It's not a, when do I go in and when do I come out?
The way it is right now, if we don't grant this, is the traffic coming out of that property has to find a way to merge into the one lane. Then you traverse north, and if you want to go in Ocean Pines, you move over and you go into the North Bridge, or you stay straight. This is actually creating, this is as much for the folks here as anything, this is creating another entire lane all the way to our entrance, which basically then says, I'm turning right to get out, I've got a very, very long speed up lane to get, if I'm not going to Ocean Pines, and the Ocean Pines people, so we're doing this as opposed to making these guys merge.
Exactly.
I'm not real sure about that.
If you
We
put
have
that
to use a little
separation
bit
in
of
the middle,
common sense on the volume of traffic that's going to be
They'd have to
coming
come
out
out
of that place.
before-
That's a good
Occasionally, 1 or 2, 3, 4 cars an hour. They're not going to, and your safety is your mirror and your common sense. So we can just agree to disagree here, Dan.
Well, what do we need?
What
Okay.
What has been submitted, okay, and I'll have this for everybody, and I've got the information emailed back from Joe Moore. It was submitted about 8 days ago to me from Mr. Hand and Associates, RD Hand and Associates, supplied the request. I then sent it to Joe Moore to say before, the board's going to need some guidance on this. So they sent, Mr. Hand then delivered these because what was initially sent to me was almost illegible. I mean, you weren't going to be able to see it. So he quickly got this, and now the request is coming from them for that easement. The board can decide yes or no. And from there, I would talk to Joe Moore about it and let him respond.
When do we have to do this? I mean,
There was no timetable. It was requested, and I validated. Again, this was requested. The letter is dated the 16th of May, so it's recent. I got it, requested additional information, and forwarded it to Joe for response, and here we are today.
Okay, the Route 90 intersection, where Route 90 crosses Route 589, is just a little bit past that, at less than a half a mile, about a quarter mile.
Should we have some off the state highway?
Well, if you don't mind, Bill, just hang on a second here. Where I'm going with this is this. That intersection in that area has the same problem from a different direction in that to turn left, you have to get into the left-hand lane. To turn left, you have to get into the left-hand lane, and there's nothing separating those lanes. The state has therefore rated that intersection its lowest possible grade.
That's correct. I remember that.
It's a D-grade intersection.
You're right.
Period. The thing that I would really like to hear is, and I'm sorry that I don't remember his name, but there's a state highway engineer for Worcester County down here.
Donnie Drewer.
Donnie Drewer, who knows us. I'd love to hear what Donnie has to say about the relative merits and safety or hazard possibilities of this before we have to make a decision. Donnie, I trust.
Yeah, but there is a huge difference of volume of traffic of coming off Route 90 than coming out of a parking lot on an occasional basis.
How are you?
But if we have any questions, be our due diligence vessel on the Highway Commission come out and explain this question.
I would like to ask, since we don't have a drop-dead deadline on this, can I ask Ray, you, and Dan to work on this, since you two are shaking hands on this one?
Sure, Danny.
Oh, I'm not asking you to take it over. I just want you to work with Bob to make sure that we get whatever information we need at the next meeting so we can make a decision.
Okay.
Because I don't think we're at a point of being able to decide that, and you two guys are big enough to shove each other around.
Yeah, and have coffee and a beer.
Sure, of course. Got a question?
No, I just told you.
Oh.
I already asked it. I asked
Okay.
Bob. I would like that information about the separation between a non-continuous thing.
Right, okay. All right, funding requests.
Funding requests. I'm going to pass.
They're gonna pass that out.
I'm going to pass them out.
These are all budgeted already, too.
Yes, these are budgeted and the numbers. Okay. First item is a budgeted item. This is for the roadway striping down the Parkway. We had initially talked to the State Highway Administrator. You know, remember last fall, we cleaned the grass and stuff was coming over the yellow line. We went and cleaned all that up. We said we're going to get back to it this spring and paint, freshen those lines up. Well, we have tried for the last month and a half to get a quote from the State Highway Administration to quote, paint the roads. They have not responded. We did get quotes from KAP Contracting and Chesapeake Paving and Sealing to do the roads. They are prepared to start quickly, weather permitting. I'd like permission to move forward. This one is a difference from the budgeted number, an increase of $7,000. But we can't get into the other quotes almost $16,000. And
Are they striping on both sides of the road?
But yeah, all the way, yes, on both.
The bike lane and the center.
The white line and the center line, yes.
They need to be done.
Yeah.
They do. They do. We held off. The reason we didn't do it in the fall when we cleaned it, well, reasonably, if we had a hard winter where we had snow and everything on the road, we'd have been scraping over it again. So we said we're going to get to it in spring. We've sprayed all the stuff we need to make sure all the grass, everything that was grown over, we've cut it back, we've edged it. Now it's time to stripe it. But because of the number, it was such a high amount, I need to bring it back to you guys and ask for permission.
You need a motion to approve.
Before you make
Yeah,
it,
definitely.
assuming you're recommending KAP.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve KAP.
Second,
Second.
discussion. I think it needs to be done as soon as possible. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Okay, this is the next item.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, this is for golf maintenance equipment. Okay, you notice the 3 bids are included. We actually have a decrease in the budget. You have one? This is actually below budgeted pricing by about $5,000 for this particular unit. Greens mowers, basically, they're replacing them. We had budgeted for it. It's, these are just recurring items. But I want to make sure I brought it back to the board for final approval before we order them.
Motion to approve.
Although, discussion?
It says bench services.
I'm sorry?
Bench services.
Yes, yes.
So this basically almost makes these two together
A wash.
almost a wash, $2,000 negative.
It's about to get better.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Here's the last item.
Oops, sorry. 3, 4.
You may end up in the black here, too.
Don't look. I don't know what I'm doing, obviously.
Keep one for
Let's see if
yourself,
we can
Dave. Keep one for yourself, Dave.
Okay. Fence services again. This is another. These are purchasing the greens mowers. Again, these are replacement. They were budgeted, but you'll notice this is a $17,000 improvement in pricing.
Tell me about this Jacobson not being reliable.
It's the experience that they've had with you. Want to talk about reliability?
Well, the notice here, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, it's right there.
I know
Not
it's
as reliable as what John
the
Deere
staff
is.
felt that the Finch with John Deere Services was a more reliable product and more reliable company to work with than the other distributor. And
Bob,
yes, sir.
so it doesn't say John Deere.
No, but they're John Deere.
That's what's being compared, the John Deere equipment versus the Jacobson, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's just that there's no reference to any of the brands, and so we'll have to assume.
All right.
But anyway, yeah, John Deere is more reliable reputation.
It is, and it's a $17,000 improvement. Now, part of the advantage there, just so it's not that pricing has improved so much, this is part of the partnership with Casper. They do bulk purchases. They have much greater, Casper's pricing, they have much greater purchasing power than we would individually, and that's where we're getting the discounted price. You know, they're buying mowers all over the country. They get a corporate discount, and that's being passed on to us. So, end result, $17,000 lower, and I'd like your approval to purchase that equipment.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Are we done with your list now before I skip anything?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay, Terry Moore, renaming the area surrounding the Veterans Memorial.
Okay, maybe the third time's the charm. You have the packet in front of you with supporting documentation from the VFW Code 8296 and from Marie Gilmore, President of the Veterans Memorial. And both of these groups are supporting naming the area surrounding the Veterans Memorial Park, and keeping our South Gate Pond sign north.
For the record, read the motion.
For the record, I'll read the motion, as you probably know it by heart. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors hereby approves the renaming of the entire area encompassing the Veterans Memorial, including the pond, circular pathways around the pond, and Veterans Memorial Park, Ocean Pines, and return the pond to its original designation as South Gate Pond.
Discussion, raised, second, discussion.
Seems like a good thing to do to me.
Yes.
So we got a Southgate Pond in the Veteran Memorial Park.
Right.
And we have support from the affected organizations.
Tom, I just inquired, we've had 6 or 7 signs, Terry, you think they've already been, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other comments? Stay on.
We have a second for it?
I have a
Yeah.
Ray second.
Right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Wentworth.
Yes, sir. We're looking at the pending action list and then our goals or objectives for the year. Numbers 1 and 2 under the pending action list, year-end advisory committee reports, and also the number 3 charge adoption for the advisory committee. I believe that's going to be addressed later on. What you've done with those. Bridge status is still.
I now have the budget from the county, so now we can
Then we can find out what the deal is on that. Okay, with regard to our objective, number 1, I think we can take care of. I think we still need to really work on seeing what is available to us from federal and state grants, as other communities around us seem to be able to procure things, so we need to be a little more active in that area. I think number 3 has been going away, obviously, and is completed in the both drainage area, especially with green. The IT, and I think IT is a real important thing here with our goals. In fact, I've done a little research, some things that we've accomplished. Technology is not a finite thing, it's an infinite thing. And we need to continue to work and expand our technology to make us a community work more efficiently. And some of the things that we have accomplished in the last several months is we have a new website, which is available, makes things clearer to locate numbers. We've migrated from the PBGS system to Office 365. We've implemented the one card system with regard to our membership cards. New phones, we have a new phone system throughout the organization management. We're working on getting that. We had now computer-aided dispatch and records management, which integrates with county, Ocean City, Snow Hill, and 2 other departments are considering. Berlin, Pocono, we're looking at it. We're thinking with those communities, what's going on. We put in beach club scanners. We have constant contact with what's going on within these areas. We computerized the POS at the pools. We have video now live streaming. We have video live feed, channel 78 with regard to our meetings. We're using technology for completing our surveys. We have an online newsletter established Facebook, and we had 3 new monitors and cameras at the administration building. So, from my standpoint, we're kind of scratching the surface, but we're heading in the right direction as far as making use of technology and making us a more efficient operation.
Questions? Good job on that IT stuff, Don. You and the team. Okay. New business. Motion to direct the president to request board advisory committees to undertake an evaluation of activities and committee membership. Pete Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. The motion here is in recognition of a couple of things. Number one, the upcoming May 29th meeting of the Executive Council, which is comprised of all chairs of the committees with the president, and initiated this past year was a process to try and better define the committee's each of the committee's objectives during the course of the year. Because we as a board have become more involved in policy setting, as I think we should, and less in day-to-day management of the association, the question has been raised about the appropriateness of the roles, frankly, of the various committees. We want to be able to utilize, it seems to me, as an organization, our committees to the maximum benefit of the association. What we have right now are advisory committees, but they're board advisory committees. And a lot of the issues that they deal with are day-to-day management issues that they raise and so forth, but yet we as a board are not involved in day-to-day management issues. So there has been, obviously, at various committees throughout the course of the year, I think a need for more, on their part, a desire for more, not instruction, but more guidance, if you will, from the board, clarification of roles, reporting relationships, and that sort of thing. We began that process with the charging document that was asked of each committee earlier this year. And I think the intent was to have that be sort of a compact, if you will, between the various advisory committees and the board as to what their roles, the objectives would be for the coming year. Wanted to avoid several committees going off on their own, doing the same thing, acting at cross purposes through no fault of their own. So to provide some clarification of what their role should be over the coming year and what tasks they may either ask to undertake or alternatively the board ask them to undertake. And I thought that was an excellent way to do that through this charging document process. But of course, we are where we are today and concluding one year and getting ready to start another. So it seems to me that the trust of this is, and it's not, I think the board is generally supportive of trying to clarify the roles of the committees and improve the communication with the various committees and maximize the effectiveness of those committees, right? So this is just simply one step in the process. And so I'll read the motion with having given that background and discussion. The board hereby directs the president to request that the chairpersons of each advisory committee, working with their respective committees, undertake an evaluation of the composition and effectiveness of the committees. Such evaluation should specifically address 1, the ongoing activities which the committee believes are those most helpful to the association, 2, the desired background and experience of members of the committee, and 3, the most desirable number of committee members or range thereof. So that's the motion, and again, the intent is to try and make better clarification of roles and communications and tasks.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Dan, then
With respect to the 3 points that you made, a basis for evaluation, might I suggest that we think about adding a 4th point of evaluation? And that that's the current committee member status with respect to the balance of their terms remaining. I'd really like to know what the composition issues are coming down the road at us. In other words, are we looking at committees who are going to be 50% undermanned next year, and do we have a major problem with trying to find the right people to fill it?
Just as a follow-up to that, Dan, I've been looking at that myself. We do have some committee members on some of our advisory committees that are beyond the time frame, and we recognize that, so I would agree to add that. Bill, you want to?
Yeah, as a former chairman of an advisory committee, I think it'd be very, very important to give the committee some direction exactly as the expectation of what the role is. It can be very frustrating. You get big reviews, you get big signals from board to board, person to person who you speak to about what the role is, who they're supposed to be forwarding any recommendations or thoughts to, and how that's supposed to operate. And I think it would benefit the committees as well as a smoother operational relationship between the committees and board of directors and management. Rather than have a definitive role with respect.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm in favor of this, in case somebody's wondering. I like this because it's asking the committees to give their input on what they believe. It's not a directive as to what to do. It's give us your input. We're evaluating where we are, and we want your help in doing that. Terry?
Yeah, I actually had a committee meeting today, and we talked a little bit about this. They are very much in favor of going through this process because they feel it will really help them.
Let me respond to Dan. Dan, how about if I amend it to add this? So scratch the and before 3, say 3 the most time, and 4, updating the committee's roster indicating the dates of board appointments.
It's fine with me. That's perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what that would give us.
So I will then amend that motion to include that, and whoever seconded it.
Dave seconded.
Dave, you okay with that, Dave?
Sure.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Let me just add one comment here before we vote. In the context of this, because we're going to move on to other matters, that roster, and I know Teresa's been doing some trying to get updates on committee composition and rosters and dates appointments and so on. We as a board are required to appoint members of those advisory committees, but also to reappoint them. Right. And the rules are 3-2-1. 3-2-1. And I think there's been some, maybe not following that as closely as we should, shall we say. But a person is appointed initially for a 3-year term by the board, not a 6-year term. And so we have been more recently, as a board, approving second terms and third terms, but not as much as we should. So we need to get all that squared away and tighten up this whole process of committees and try and make them more effective and understand what we got.
Yeah, I mean, the guidelines with the roadmap for doing that is in CO1.
Exactly.
Right.
We spelled out the rules.
It's there. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, there's no
Absolutely.
question we have.
We got to do a better job.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we want the committee to help them do a better job.
All right, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Good.
Thank you. Mr. Unger, release of funds to begin work on the dog park.
Mine's very simple and very quick. Based on the third schematic that Bob put up on the board, okay, that he recommends, and I also agree with Robert. On the third one, location 3. I make a motion that the board of directors release the matching funds for the dog park construction begin immediately. Immediately meaning when we finalize, the design. About an hour.
Is there a second for that?
No.
Well, second for discussion.
Okay.
I just like to kind of.
Second, okay, discussion.
Well, let me add to the discussion. Ray, I don't think we need to have this motion. I think immediately, I think the sense of it is we view this as a management task. He's got to come back to us to get approval for the funding anyway. This is directing things to go immediately. I think we just ought to let it play out as we have originally intended, and that is to let him do what he's done. We've given him the direction to go to the preferred location, and the next step, as I see it, is for Bob to come back to us with refined estimates and contractual bids, I think, and then move on to it. So I'm not sure what this does. In fact, this may be counterproductive in a sense, because how can we approve something to move immediately when we haven't even gotten cost estimates?
I hate to do this to you, Pete.
Oh, go ahead, Dan. Everybody else does. Go ahead.
No, this is, this motion, Ray had called me the same day that Bob and I were working on getting the agenda together. And Bob, this was the third item on Bob's authorization list in his section that we just went through. And I had said, well, if Ray's already got a motion on the agenda to approve the release of the funds and get construction authorized and start the construction, so why wouldn't we just go ahead and use Ray's motion? So there is a reason for it being here. It's not superfluous. It just was not handled. It was not in Bob's request list for funding. Now, if you want to rewrite or amend the motion so that it makes more sense to you, that's cool. But that's why you're seeing it where you're seeing it. That's why it's the way it is.
I'll let others speak for the moment.
Yeah, I hear David's home. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't we do this the way we just did the other two projects, and like every other project where we see what the bidders are? He says, I'm ready, here's my recommendation, and we say, the people should understand that there's nothing in the way of getting this thing done other than the location, getting it done, the management things that are required. So
we have always said from the beginning of this, when we voted to authorize the work on it, that the final costs would be presented to the board. And you hinted today that there could be a no more than $30,000 budget that we could authorize. If we wanted to take that step, we could do that. And that would be a no more than 30,000, which would be, we asked the citizens to raise 15, they did. I'm just throwing it out as a way of keeping things moving so that we don't have to have a special meeting to approve the beginning of the work on the dog park.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you have your hand up.
Okay. Thank you for recognition.
You're welcome.
I intend to vote against this because I don't think we need it. And it says two things to me. It's a very simple motion. I make the motion that the board of directors release the matching funds and the construction begin immediately. Release the matching funds to whom?
The account that the other 15,000 people collected it. Is that the way it's been done, Bob?
They've raised the money. We haven't received.
They have the money. They have the money.
They have the money. I'm sure they have.
This says the directors releasing the funds to whom? Anyway, and saying the discussion begin immediately. We don't even know what the bids are, what the specs are. How can we approve this as it is written? To release the funds and to begin construction immediately. Not a month from now. But I think we ought to read, as Dave Stevens suggested, we ought to let the normal process carry out.
It's up to Ray. It's up to you.
I have no problem with that at all. It's moving on the way it should in the time frame it should, so I have no problem with that at all. I withdraw.
Withdraw the motion. Okay, thank you. It'll get done.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, amendment bylaw section 5.02C, Dave.
Okay. You've all received these and the rationale. And actually some of the backup information that okay, I'm just pointing out that the board has all seen the motion and the backup. I'll just read it. I move that the board propose the following amendment of the bylaws, section 5.02B and C, to the association membership via a referendum ballot. 1. Delete the final line of section 502B, which reads, the committee shall submit a list of candidates to the secretary not later than May 15th. 2. Replace section 502C with the following. Section 502C, candidate applications. Each member who desires to be the candidate for election to the Board of Directors shall complete an application form available at the association office or other designated locations. The form shall be returned to the association office no later than the end of regular business hours on the last business day in May. The form shall state that the candidate meets the requirements of paragraph A of this section and is willing to serve as director if elected. At the candidate's option, the application form may include the candidate's experience, past participation in association governance, and reasons for becoming a candidate. Now, what's the effect of this? What is really, what's changed in this? Basically, it's taken the search committee out of the role of handling or distributing the applications. And doing as was really intended, making them a true search committee to try and find candidates. The bylaws revision of 2008 eliminated the role of the nominating committee and replaced it with the search committee. It is clear the intent was to avoid having a small appointed group screen potential candidates or to serve as any kind of gatekeeper for incoming applications. Now, the effect of the proposed change is twofold. It eliminates the necessity for the search committee to handle applications, since there's no longer really any point to this. Of course, the committee will monitor the incoming applications to determine how much progress the search is making and to ensure all applications are received by the secretary. Second, the May 10th date lacks meaning if the search committee doesn't have a gatekeeper responsibility. If the applications are received on May 10th, nothing will happen to them other than the secretary's validation until the end of the month when they're turned over to the elections committee. That's 20 days that could be used to receive other applications. Now, we actually recognized this problem before, when we wrote MO6, Board Resolution MO6. And MO6 currently reads that the end of the month is the last day for applications. Now, our association attorney said that, look, if there's a discrepancy between the bylaws and the resolution, the bylaws must take precedent. Therefore, this is a simple, really almost a housekeeping change to the bylaws to bring them in line with what was intended when the search committee was put in place, the former nominating committee.
I have a second. There being no second, amendment to resolution B04.
No discussion either.
Well, there's
Okay.
no second, there's no discussion.
That's right, that's the point of it. Do you, okay, sorry. What was that? Motion to amend Resolution B04, Agenda Development for Board Meetings. I move that Board Resolution B04 be amended as follows. Modified paragraph 5, publication, to read, the agenda for a regular meeting, along with all available supporting materials, such as motion and discussion submissions, briefings and reports, shall be distributed to all directors and made available to association members and the press at least 3 days prior to the meeting by electronic or other means. Supporting materials for additional motions and topics presented for board approval on the day of the meeting shall be distributed and made available when such approval is granted. The existing paragraph may be construed to mean, and has been construed to mean, that only the outline of the agenda is to be made available to the association members and the press, while board members receive the motions, backgrounds, and arguments at least 3 days prior to the meeting, by definition. Following the policy unnecessarily limits the ability of the membership to follow and express their opinions on the issues being debated. I believe it's certainly contrary to the spirit, if not the letter, of the Maryland Homeowners Association Act and its emphasis on transparency and participation. Since all motions and discussion topics are now to be published at least 3 days prior to the meeting, there is no negative impact in making them available to the public at will. There will be a very positive impact in the form of better meetings with an informed public. Basically, this motion says that we're trying to make the public understand what business we're transacting while we're transacting it. It's a matter of openness, and it's a matter of trying to make or bring the public, or our public, in our membership, I should say, into the process of governance.
Second. Discussion.
I have 3 points that I think should be made on this particular motion. First, as secretary and the guy who gets to put together the agenda and get the information together and get it out, I assure you that there's no physical way to get everything that you've looked at this table tonight out to the general public or even the board 3 days prior to the board meeting. Simply doesn't happen. It's not going to be available. There's no way to make this happen. Point 1. Point 2, the existing resolution B-04 says, under paragraph 5, which this motion purports to get rid of, and I quote, publication, the agenda for a regular meeting shall be distributed to all directors and made available to association members and the press at least 3 days prior to the meeting, including the use of electronic means to publish the agenda. Period. That particular statement supports section 5.08 of the bylaws, notice of meetings, which says, and I'll quote it all, notice of the organization, a regular or a special meeting of the board of directors shall state the time, date, place, and purpose or purposes of the meeting. A, notice of each board meeting shall be given to each director personally or by mail, telephone, or electronic means at least 3 days prior to the meeting. A director waives notice if he or she is present at the meeting or signs a waiver of notice that is filed with the minutes of the meeting. B, notice of each board meeting shall be posted at the association's office and, when practicable, shall be provided to media sources having a general circulation in the subdivision and made available to members by electronic and other means. I submit to you that our bylaws quite specifically say that we provide notice of the meeting, which we call an agenda, to the board members and to the general public. And that's it, folks. I don't think this motion can stand without modifying the bylaws. And I don't really think we want to go there.
Right, it doesn't say a specific time.
3 days prior.
Just for point of discussion, could this also be accomplished if we decide to do this, providing a binder to the administrative office, this information, if someone wants to come and look at it ahead of time?
If I may.
That's it. We're in discussion.
The first point is, in terms of what's the, you picked out one area of the bylaws, but if you look at notice of other things, and particularly the annual meeting, where there are discussions and issues for debate, you'll find that, in fact, you do have to provide the motions and the background for the information that's being discussed. I think it's really the intent of the Maryland law to make that information available. Now, the other point, you said there's no way you can get that information to the directors 3 days beforehand. Yet on the other hand, you've told me in the past, and since taking over as secretary, that we shall get this information available or make it available to the directors, and it will be on our impact. I think that was even repeated at this meeting. Now, the motion itself recognizes that not all information can be made available. I mean, I've included backup information right here in this meeting, or I brought it to this meeting that I didn't simply have in time. But on the other hand, what it says, the motion says, the agenda for a regular meeting, along with all available supporting materials, such as motions and discussions. I'm talking about what's available. I'm not saying that everything has to be made available. If it's not, it's not. If we have it, what reason do we have for not giving it to the public for them to understand what we're doing? There's been many meetings here where we have, even the board has received information at the meeting, which certainly we could have benefited by seeing in advance and being able to think about, ask better questions about, whatever. And the public has every right to that information as well.
Mr. President, if I may respond to one of those. The annual meeting requirement, as expressed in the bylaws, as I understand it, is very clear. And that's that the only things that are included on that in terms of motions or any other information are things that need to be voted on if there in fact is a quorum at the annual meeting. All that is required otherwise is a simple, straightforward agenda that's set forth in our bylaws for the annual meeting, line for line. And we have been using since a long time ago. As far as the 3-day requirement and my promise to get material to everybody on the board, I think I've delivered on that to the extent that I control the background information and get my hands on it. What I've learned while being secretary is that there is information that's generated here that is germane to a board meeting that is simply not available in any form until the day of the board meeting or the day before, or is held for a good reason. And the best example of that are CPI violations, which we don't talk about or put on we put them on our agenda if they're in the pipeline to come to the board, but those could be resolved before the board meeting actually happens. So why embarrass somebody by putting their name down on an agenda? I know, and it shouldn't happen. And so now what you see is CPI actions if they're in the stream, but it's up to Bob to pull the trigger on them the day of the board meeting. So there's physically information that I'm just not going to be putting there as acting as secretary in my role. Again, I'm not trying to create a major argument with this. I'm just saying that what you're proposing, I don't disagree with in terms of trying to inform people a little bit more about what's going on at a board meeting. But under the rules that we have in our bylaws, it's simply, why would we write or amend a resolution and put it in violation of the bylaws and simply have Joe Moore come back and say again to the board, guys, the bylaws trump the resolution.
Yeah, I do not support this motion. Amongst the things that people inquire about, complain about, ask about, there's only one person that I've heard want all this information out, and that person happens to be in the audience tonight. And I believe there's a particular reason he wants it, and that's for the forum. But it's not the pressing issue that I've heard from the general public wanting all this material dumped on them prior to a board meeting. I think the intent, with all due respect, Dave Stevens, with respect to the Maryland law, I think we're complying with the spirit of the Maryland law. However, I think we need to do a better job in this respect. And Dan and I have talked about this. I think we have not provided a sufficient description, oftentimes, of motions on the agenda. Recent example would be, I think last month, where it said DCOMSEC motion regarding IRS. Well, I would have suggested that it be what the title of the motion was when I submitted it, and that is method of paying the expenses related to the IRS matter. So I think if we can do a better job of informing through the agenda a more descriptive language of what the motions are intended to accomplish, that in my mind satisfies not only our obligation, but I think makes good business sense, rather than one of the practical realities here, as Dan said, is getting this information together. But even as it relates to motions, giving the membership, I think, the notice of what it is that's going to be discussed, without necessarily having them give them all the words and T's and dotting the I's and all that sort of thing, just so it can cause a lot of discussion. Anyway, I'm in favor of having more disclosure in our agendas of what it is we're doing, but without providing all this detail, and I'm opposed to this motion.
Again, I'll repeat, the only thing this motion addresses is that information which is available. And that information which is available to the board could be made available to anybody else. There are many ways to do it, and they're not necessarily comparable. What Bill suggested is simply say they're available in a folder in the administration office. So that's really not an issue. You know, I believe the information that we suggest, Pete says we should let the information out about it. What is the purpose of the motion? What is the motion or the impact of the motion? Those are all things that are required for us to submit a motion. Now, how the purpose or the potential impact of a motion, why that should not be made public is beyond me. But, you know, again, I'm willing to let the matter ride here, rest here, and let's call the question.
I do want to make a couple comments before I call the question on this one. I can honestly see both sides of this situation. I also understand that motions have come to this table and been withdrawn. There are motions that are put on this table and changed dramatically before they're voted up or down. We live in a community, any community, where what hits the papers, what hits the airways, what hits the internet becomes the truth, becomes the reality. And it may not be what we ended up voting to do at all. So in that sense, I think that we need to manage the communications better as to what we're going to talk about, and I think the agenda this time shows we've tried to start doing that. And with that, I will call the question. All those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Sorry.
Opposed?
Yeah, sorry. No, thanks.
You opposed?
So
Five to two.
Five to two.
Yeah, I'm,
2 in favor, 5
I'm
opposed.
sorry.
Bill and Dave.
Bill and Dave were in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, amendment, accept new board resolution M09.
Well, I'm on a roll.
Go for it.
I move that the board accept new board resolution M09 candidate search process for OPA board elections for first consideration. What the impact of this motion is to basically VO1, Book of Resolutions, VO1 describes the procedures for introducing new resolutions. And first consideration is the initial board action. During this meeting, the board may suggest and vote on changes, make the amended or original version available for public review. The Bylaws and Resolutions Committee has reviewed and commented on MO9, and also recommends that it be forwarded for review to the association attorney. The purpose of the bylaws change of 2008 established basically a new committee and replaced the nominating committee with the search committee. There is a very incomplete and actually somewhat inconsistent description of the search committee. You all received the note or the email that I sent describing the meeting that Jim Trummel and I had with the association attorney, which was set up by Tom Terry. There is certainly some ambiguity, to say the least, in what the search committee is to do. This resolution hopefully will define what that candidate, not only what the search committee does, but what the candidate search process is.
Let me, that's the motion. Have a second.
Are you asking for a second?
Yeah. Yes.
No, yeah. He wants to know if there's a second.
Yeah.
Second
Oh,
for
thank you.
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gonna have to second it from the chair.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, discussion. Let me start off with discussion on this one because I got with Dave and actually asked that a procedure, I agreed that we needed a procedure for the search committee. I think at the end of the day, I think this committee, this document as it's written, would benefit from input from those who have served on the search committee and have them review it to see what their reactions are to it before we take action on it. My sense is that the search committee in this document becomes, it's not that they're a gatekeeper, it's that they basically, I can't see where they're actively in charge of much of anything at that point, and that's why I would like to have members of the committee who have served on it to have some input into this, to let them review it, and that's just my input. It's not that I'm against it, it's just I think it would benefit from having those who have done it review it and give some thought to it. That's my input. The rest of the discussion will go right ahead. I'm not against the idea of having it at all. I just think that have them look at it. It makes sense. So.
That's my question, Dave. Has the search committee had a chance to respond to it?
No, this particular search committee has not. No. Okay. But if you ask me, well, why? and the reason why is in submitting it to the board as a first submission. Now you have the opportunity for everybody to review it in detail and to send it on to the search committee for all of their comments. I mean, this is a work in progress.
Dan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with Dave on this one, in that there is a definite need for a much better process and procedure description than what we have in our existing bylaws and our existing literature. And it can be done much the same as the draft that we're looking at. But at the same time, Dave, you've worked with the bylaws committee to develop this draft.
Correct.
Say so. And you're looking for an attorney's review. Frankly, I would really like to see two groups take a look at this before we send it to the attorney for review. I think Jim Beisler and some of the members of the current search committee would be willing to spend some time and take a look at this. And I also know that Judy Butler and Diane McGraw and a couple of people in the elections committee would be happy to sit down and take a look at this and comment for board purposes. And I think that would be extremely helpful if we could do that before we start taking a lot of action. I can't, as one person, I can't sit down and make recommendations about modifications to this, but my gut tells me that we can do it better than this draft is at this point in I just would like to see maybe if we can get some help from the other folks who are directly involved with this process before we go trying to do that.
Procedurally, if we pass this, we move that we basically accept this for the first reading.
Just for first reading.
Yeah, that's what I'm
All right, Pete, go ahead.
I think
I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm in favor of getting input from a far larger segment than we have at the moment. And therefore, I'm reluctant to even do the first reading of this because it really gives the board, it embraces this and then we can fine tune it. Dave, I'm curious about your response to the question a moment ago about have you involved in this, the committee? And your answer was not the current committee. Does that suggest that you conferred with other committees in the past?
I've worked with other committees.
No, I mean, in the context of the question about, did you get input?
No.
And your response, though, sort of indicated maybe you've gotten it from other committees, but not this particular committee.
No.
Because there is a chairperson in the back here that chaired the last couple of years, I believe, of the committee, Dennis Hudson. For example, was his committee or others?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay. So the answer is no. Okay. Fine. I think we need more input. I mean, I personally am not against improving a process, okay? But I don't think this is the way to do it without getting the input of a variety of different people. Mr. Hudson has his hand up.
I'll suspend the rules for one minute.
He served a couple of years as chair of the committee.
Dennis Hudson, 26 Links Lane. All I ask that the board do is not handcuff your committees when they start looking for qualified candidates. There is no secret agenda. There are no applications being shoved under the table. All applications, at least in the 2 years that I had it, were delivered directly to the administration office. They didn't even go through us. We had to call to find out who turned them in. Second thing is, as far as opening this up to the public and transparency, Mr. Stevens, I personally paid for an ad myself advertising that the board is looking for candidates a year ago.
I think you're mistaken. I don't think I said anything about that. I didn't mention the word transparency or opening it to the public with respect to this particular resolution, Dennis.
All I'm asking you to do is not handcuff your committee, because what you're going to do in effect is you're going to restrain that and restrict the flow of candidates coming in. Period.
Thank you. Dan?
Parliamentary question, Dave, and you are the parliamentarian. I believe that I could move to table this motion with a referral to the elections and search committees at this point in time. Is that correct?
Yes, you could.
I so moved.
In which case, but the impact of, oh, never mind. Okay.
Rather than voting it.
This is the reason I made the point is that's called a peremptory motion.
Right.
Yes.
You have to consider that now.
Right.
Decide whether to refer it to other people before we vote.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll second.
Discussion on that.
Yeah, what that says is, whoa, let's get this into the hands of people who maybe have some input to it, to decide whether or not we then want to bring forward this or some revised version of this or nothing at all, after having had input from others that have experience in the area. Is that right? Okay, cool.
And by the way, I mean, I don't really care much about that, because I think all you're really doing is just changing the order in which things are done. Exactly all of those things would happen if the committee accepted this for first reading. And you know, you can go forever from first reading and get as many reviews as you want. That's the process of creating a resolution. So you could get to the second, and we've done that. We've had multiple meetings on certain of the, remember MO6?
Okay, the reality is that, Dan, your motion on the table,
Takes
these are my words, nobody else's, effectively does exactly what we've been talking about, is getting to those committees to create the first reading document. That's the motion. That's the effect of what you just proposed, correct?
The effect of what I just proposed is moves it to people who are intimately familiar with this process and have actually been doing it for a review along the lines of what you just heard from Mr. Hudson. You know, part of my reaction to this motion is simply, I know And I think everybody at this table and in this room knows that finding people who are willing and able to serve as directors on the Ocean Pines Board of Directors is possibly one of the toughest jobs that's done in this community. There are very few people who are willing to take it on, and there are very few people who are really capable of getting there and making something good happen. We have enough in the way of direction in our bylaws right now to establish a committee, a search committee, and let them exercise their judgment in this process without tying their hands behind them. I think Mr. Hudson's comment is a very strong one. And I'd like to hear not only his, but the current search committee's comments. And I am the liaison with the elections committee, and Chairman Butler there has said that they're very interested in what the search committee structure is, should be, or how they would operate. Not that they're involved with them, but they are at the receiving end of the process.
They receive the output.
So, that's why the pre-motion is on the floor.
It's entirely, yeah.
We're in discussion.
Okay, we're in discussion. It's entirely possible that convening those individuals who've had the experience, they may come back and say, don't fix what isn't broken. So our advice is, based on our experience, that Dennis advised us to be cautious about this. They may well come back, as I said, and say, whoa, what are you trying to do here? Handcuff us? So I like the approach of giving their input to decide not to come back with a revised motion, but to ask the board basic question is, do we really need it? So it's up to them.
Second discussion, Dave.
Yeah, well, if we're going to members of the search committee, then let's expand it out. And we'll take all members of the search committee since they were created. That's easily done. We have prior members that were, so that it does spread out. With all respect to Mr. Hudson, he hasn't read the motion. He would have had an opportunity to read it. And saying it handcuffs the committee before having read it is, perhaps slightly prejudicial towards the motion. I don't think there's anything in this resolution that handcuffs a committee. Now, if you're going to go into it to discuss the resolution, I'd be happy to.
We have a
I'm
motion.
I'm not going to do that, but
we have a motion and a second.
No.
My clarification, Dan, is procedurally in your motion, are you asking me as the president to oversee that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. To make sure that those committees get. Okay.
we're going to leave it in the hands of the president to formulate an appropriate group to.
Yep.
Good.
We have could you please repeat your motion so we're very clear on that?
I would move to table this motion until comments can be received from the elections and search committee staff as determined by the president of the board.
Second. Okay. Discussion on that.
So you convene a group.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
6-1.
It's okay.
Dave, did you vote no?
We still need this process.
6-1.
There's cracks in that process.
Okay.
All right. Refer a draft proxy statement written by the Elections Committee. Mr. Moore for review and comment.
In your packages, you got both
proxy statement.
You got a proxy statement draft, and you got a written motion from me, thanks to a reminder from Dave Stevens that I had not sent one around with the original package. I do appreciate that, sir. Seriously, not a joke. The motion is to refer this draft proxy form that's in your package, as submitted by the Elections Committee to the Secretary, to the Ocean Pines Association Corporate Counsel for his opinion on whether this proxy form as drafted will meet the requirements of Articles 3 and 4 of the OPA bylaws. I can go through some background on this if you'd like, or we can just see if I can get a second at this point.
Second, Greg. Discussion.
If I can, Mr. President.
You're first.
OPA bylaws section 3.03 proxies provides for limited proxy voting, provides that, I said this incorrectly, I didn't put it quite right, provides for limited proxy voting to issues included in the notice of the annual or a special meeting of members. Subsections A, B, and C of section 3.03 detail specific methodology that applies to each case in which a proxy can be used. Articles 4 and in one case 5, where it mentions a way to get to a full quorum in the annual meeting, in the bylaws also refer to proxy voting. The point behind this is that doing a proxy in Ocean Pines case is not simply doing a general proxy. There are some very specific rules that we got to make sure that we're walking through without setting off landmines.
And right now, we don't really have a formal process.
The other thing is, nowhere in the materials that I could find is there a proxy. We don't know what a proxy is in terms of Ocean Pines, the corporation. So from my perspective, the Elections Committee has every right to do and deliver a proxy form, but they asked that I, as the liaison, bring this proxy form to the board to get the board's authorization for a legal review and then to have a board discussion based upon that review so we could provide input back to them. I think that's a very good way to proceed with this one.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah. I think ultimately it's true that we have to go to the association attorney on this question. But with what? I mean, if we can't say what we need a proxy statement for, or what we're going to use a proxy statement for, what the purpose of a proxy statement is, then what question are we asking the association to say that it's not in violation of the bylaws? I mean, there's two ways that a proxy can be used. You can take all of that thing, and we've been through them, and we've been through them with Jim Trummel, with the bylaws committee. And there's basically two ways you can use a proxy. You can use it to establish a quorum. Okay, and this has been done routinely and informally, I might add, over the last, I don't know how many years. I don't have any problem with a proxy that's used for that purpose, and formalizing it may or may not be a good idea, but I think it probably is. Would it help? Anything? Not really. As long as you get the required number of people for proxies, you have a quorum. It's not like a vote. Okay. The second reason you can use a proxy, and this is 3.03, is to vote on those issues included in the notice of the annual or special meeting of members. I mean, that's very clear. You can go on to look further on, and, well, for an example, in the resolution where we talk, or the MO6, which basically says that a proxy must be a directed proxy. So in other words, when you write a proxy form, and only for something that's in the notice of the meeting. So there's a question. It's a yes or no question. For some reason or other, it's not a referendum question, although it's hard to figure out why it wouldn't be a referendum. But nonetheless, it will say it's a proxy question. Then that must be a directed proxy. You can say, so-and-so is going to handle this for me, and I'm voting yes. It's a directed proxy. Now, given that that person is the messenger, only the messenger, it makes sense, I believe, that that proxy could equally as well be delivered to the association secretary. And there's a whole world of sense for doing that as opposed to giving it to, hey, my next door neighbor in Ocean Pines. Not the least of which is the administrative difficulties in doing the latter. I don't object Joe getting involved in this. I don't object to this particular form being looked at, but I do want, if we are going to go forward to the attorney, to either be able to meet in person or to be able to formulate other questions that are involved in this. Okay? I mean, that's, let me, by the way.
As we have done before, and I think this can work this time, and I think there's sort of some procedural questions and comments in there as well as content. Can we work on the process of where board members provide Dan with questions that they would like to see answered? I mean, I've been the recipient of these with Joe before. And take this, or if this is that list of questions, then take that and make it part of the discussion foundation for the discussion with Joe. Does that make sense?
Yes, to a certain extent, but I mean, it's a tricky thing. And Jim Trummel and I ran into this. We did send a question to Joe for an example on the application process, or the search, and involving the search committee. And Joe came back with an answer. And you read what Joe's answer was after we got into it in a little more detail, which was considerably different than the original.
But then when you met with Joe,
and we met with him, we ironed it all. Well, there was one thing that was
so
clear.
let me just to cut through due to time and stuff. Are we really basically saying we have Jim Trummel and you involved in this?
I want to be involved in that.
Fine,
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
It's fine with me.
And these are just our thoughts, or sort of our combined thoughts
Yeah, I have
on what
no
the
objection
issues
at all.
are
You
with
guys
proxy
being part of
voting.
meetings, but I really don't.
And this is part of what I would say.
No issue at all.
No issue.
No issue.
Move it along. In our third hour.
I'll call the question. All those in favor?
What is the question?
The question is to
I
move
think
this to
we-
Joe Moore, and procedurally, you and Jim Trummel will go along with the meeting.
It's your motion.
It's your motion. It's your motion.
It's fine with me.
I mean, however, yeah, it's a little more than just sending this. You know, that's my only
It's fine
point.
with me.
I think everybody's agreeing.
And confer with Joe Moore on the general topic, and it doesn't have to be just Jim Trummel and I.
Well, it shouldn't be. I would like to.
No, I wouldn't mind having him in a board meeting.
Well, no, I'd like to come on. I'd like to come on the rise.
Oh, well, I thought you might.
But,
And if one more person.
Change
comes
your
on-
amendment to add you three to the meeting. All right.
So amended.
So amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Sorry, didn't. But I think it's appropriate. Fine, you're in the meeting.
Hey, Bob, you still here?
I'm here.
Hey, Bob.
I'm in.
CPI,
I'm in.
CPI, who we, what's going on? CPI.
Okay.
It's, everyone should have it in their packet.
Right.
Basically, the house needs to be cleaned up. We've tried to address it. We've tried to reach out to them. Certified mail's been sent unclaimed. We'd like to send it to our attorney so they can start action to get
Power working, I think.
for the majority of it. Yeah, but it's just an eyesore for the day. I mean, there's a little bit more to it, but yeah, we'll. My recommendation is we send it to the attorney so they can start action.
Neighborhood would appreciate it.
What is it?
CPI violation.
What's the address? What's the violation?
Point of order, Mr. President. Mr. Reynolds is in the audience and not a member of this board. Public comment.
In reference to the public, or the point of order, Dan, how about we use this? I mean, they did attend at a very late hour of the night, and they're at least entitled to hear what we say, wouldn't you say, Bob?
He heard me. He asked for the address. Am I correct?
No, I don't think so.
I asked for
The
what the
violation.
address was and what the violation was, that's all.
Okay.
As we've always done in the
Mr.
past.
President, I think,
Well, that's a
we're
point of
calling for
order.
action on 26 Parkers Drive, vote on the house.
28. 28.
28.
Excuse me.
Correction.
28 Parkers.
Let's quit dancing. It's 28 Briarcrest
28 Briarcrest
Drive,
Drive.
and it's a very, very moldy, dirty home that needs to be
Pictures
cleaned up.
are here and so forth.
Okay? All those in favor of moving this to the legal?
Aye.
Aye. Good, okay, done. I have one appointment to the Elections Committee, it's Cheryl Bissell. I have all the signatures, Gerald D. Butler, Dan Satursky, interested in expanding support of Ocean Pines community. I have affirmation to appoint Cheryl to the Elections Committee. No objection, so done, I'll sign it.
Properly signed by the committee chair and the
Yeah, no,
liaison.
it's all
Good
signed,
job.
all the paperwork's
Good job.
signed, that's good.
Mr. President,
Yes.
motion to adjourn.
Adjourn
go
to a
into
closed
a
session,
closed
that's
session.
correct.
Second that one.
All right, we want to move over to the board.